SMTN.
Hi everybody, so I have no idea what order these are going to be scheduled in, but I am talking with super awesome Patreon helper extraordinaire Anna here, and this is part of our first of hopefully many Patreon town halls, where basically as a way to kind of thank everyone who is supporting SMTN and not having to get a random tweet or Discord notification at 3 in the morning wherever they are. We can talk to various members, put it into one podcast, and hopefully all have a good time. So, Anna, thank you so much for joining me and making the first of hopefully many of these. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, just chilling.
So if people might not know who you are, or might not recognize you from the Discord or wherever, how did you get into the series for yourself, and what are you currently playing now just for funsies?
I got into SMT Mega 10 as a whole. This is actually quite personal for me. Around 2013 and 14, because I followed some Let's Plays actually of Persona 3. Actually was the first I watched somewhere, and then I got into Nocturne and Digital Devil Saga, and and I was on board with the hype train to Persona 5. So yeah, this is all in for me. And I what I'm currently playing is Great Ace Attorney and a Nier Replicant. I'm switching between both just to
That's gotta be
cleanse my palate somewhat.
I was gonna say that's gotta be a very tonally weird kind of thing to go over, because Ace Attorney can be dark, but I always associate it so much more with the comedy, whereas Nier is very dire and can be funny, but is normally very depressing and dark.
Yeah, I think I like that juxtaposition. Just I want a more story-driven game like Ace Attorney right now, and then a few days later I feel like I just want to mash some buttons, I guess, and don't know. Yeah, but of course, Nier has a super awesome story as well. So and the soundtrack, oh my god.
So I forgot, you said you're playing Replicant, right?
Yeah, and Automata was on Steam for some percentages off as well, so I got that as well.
So, is this your first one, or did you play Automata first and then go into Replicant? Or
no, this is my. I got in there head first, and I kind of regret not having gotten into it earlier, I guess.
No, I mean, I can get that, but I mean, honestly, especially because it's not really a long-running series, because outside of its connections to Drakengard and stuff, I think actually the first Nier is a lot easier to jump into, because Automata is very weird in the sense of there's a lot of media it assumes you're aware of or don't care, and if you're if you're anyone similar to me, it's like, okay, you probably didn't read the novel, you probably didn't watch the musical short play, and there's a lot of just kind of assumed lore that you'll eventually learn, but can kind of be one of those daunting things of it was almost one of those weird ones of Nier Automata being way more popular than the first one was hey, you all didn't play Nier, so we're going to make a game thousands and thousands of years in the future, so you don't feel like you have to play the first one. But there are those ties, which then kind of made it funny that after all this time they remade the first one. So I think the first one's probably less baggage, at least getting into it. It's going to have a lot of baggage for beating it. I played it on PS3, but I still need to touch the remake. I picked it up, but it just came out in a weirdly busy April, but now we are in October. I feel like is a horrifyingly busy month, especially in terms of different juxtaposition of moods. I'm juggling right now, playing Judgment, which is very gritty crime drama, murders and everything, and then also the new Super Monkey Ball, which then makes it even more funny because it's made by literally the same people. Like, these are the same people making the same games, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'll play the Happy
Maybe
Monkey in
they
the Ball.
needed a palate cleanser as well.
Yeah, it's so weird, especially because actually what's funny is, like, they have their, like, all the people who are in it, like, it is still a RGG studio, the people who make the Yakuza games, who make both, but they did not have any of the logo in it this time. They were like, no, we don't want people thinking like we make the kiddie game, which is very, very weird to me.
Hmm.
So the last thing I have last two questions before we actually get into our topic. One is just because I've had this on my mind. Speaking of October, are you planning on picking anything up this month? I feel like every week there's like 9,000 games I want to pick up, but is there anything kind of calling out to you?
I'm not that much of a regular buyer of games. I pick up whatever interests me. I have some things I'm looking forward to, SMT5 of course, but other than that, yeah, I'm just on the lookout for what interests me, and yeah, that's my video game diet, I guess.
Your wallet probably appreciates that. Like, my weird one, I keep forgetting is
Yes,
it
it does.
the weird thing that like I keep forgetting is coming out, but I cannot not get it just because I've never had a chance to play and I know I would love it. Is Alan Wake is finally getting remastered, and I
Yeah.
never played that on 360, and I'm like, I am 1,000% sure I would love that game.
I think I watched one of my friends play it overnight. We had an all-nighter playing through that, and yeah, I don't know, but I think I witnessed the game in that sense.
So the other one was, since you were kind of talking about your history with Megaten and stuff, is there one game, I always like to ask this because I feel like everyone has a different answer. What's that top game that's like on your pile of shame that you're like, oh, how come I've not played this yet?
I guess the Digital Devil Saga duology. Yeah.
Okay. Like
Yeah.
any specific reason, or just because they've always kind of interested you? Like
Uh,
what puts them up so high?
I I think it's the balance between the gameplay systems and how story driven and character driven it is compared to mainline SMT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is just always something so interesting with the Digital Devil Saga games that are like they're almost like so unique. I think because of their setting and story that like they kind of stand out on their own. Of like people don't really talk about them a lot, but everyone who has like really can't shut up about them just because it's like it's so interesting. And it always goes back to this thing of it sounds so mean in retrospect to be like I really wish we would kind of get out of Japan. Because like a large focus of like that makes these games kind of feel similar is like you keep seeing Shibuya,
Yeah.
you keep seeing Japan all the time, all the time, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you look at the games that really resonate with a lot of people, even if they might not be the most popular or not, like Strange Journey, Antarctica, Digital Devil Saga. Who really knows it's the end of the world apocalypse? At least that's a little bit more different. And then even talking about our own thing, which we have next, just the tiniest fraction of like Persona 4 not being in Japan's downtown like or Shibuya made it feel insanely more distinct and memorable.
Yeah, or Strikers as well, because you have this Japan round trip that just gives it this distinct flair and atmosphere.
No, exactly. So yes, without kind of winagling and whatever made up words I'm going to say. So our main topic here, I will let you take it away because you were the one who came up with it. But what did you want to talk about today?
Yeah, I had an idea of, and I thought back about Persona 4 Golden on the Vita, on the PS Vita, and there's this feature that's connected to PlayStation Online in that sense. I'm not that. What I'm getting at is there's this online feature called the rescue requests and their rescue logs from every player with their protagonist who uses this online feature, and whenever you are in the dungeon, you can send out your SOS signal and receive the ones from other players, so they give you some HP and SP at the start of the battle. I guess that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, when you're in the Velvet Room, there's a menu in which you can check the profiles from other players that have either received your signal or you have whatever. There's this exchange in that sense. So you can create your own message with your player's name, your protagonist's name, and a profile picture from you and you with glasses and Nanako and Dojima, Daddy Dojima, I mean, and yeah. Everyone from your party and Igor and Marie and the school logo for some reason and Margaret, yeah. And the main message consists of 8 blocks of text and other of text of words, and some people or some messages from people were quite creative and funny, and I wanted to share this with you that I collected. And Spencer, if you're up to it, you can browse through yours.
Oh, you know what? I have, because I'm a sad man, I actually do have mine up. I want to try and pull them up as, you reminded me they're in the Velvet Room. I could do that for sure. Before we go over them, though, I wanted to kind of talk to you about a little bit of it, because I honestly had like a flood of memories come back to me when it came to talking about this, of like, oh my god, I totally forgot. I remember the online rescue thing was in there, but even other features and stuff with it. Do you remember, speaking of online features, the Vox Populi?
Yeah, but that's in Persona 5 as well.
Well, it was funny, but no, it is, but it was like, I forgot that started there, of you could just go, oh my god, what do I want to do? And then it can kind of give you that idea with it. And I almost kind of liked it more because while it is in Persona 5 of like you can see what other people chose to spend their time with for it, I don't know, like I think maybe I liked the UI being less 50% people did this, 30% people did this, of just kind of that overwhelming, like it was almost like a online billboard.
Yeah, those were speech bubbles, and when you selected one of those messages, it highlighted every other message that had the same context, so you could guess the percentage of people that did either of those things.
I guess the thing I'm trying to get at was I'm not going to be I'm not interested if like 90% of people did one thing, because I feel like when you see like maybe one more over, like when you focus on the number of people doing it, it's more likely to be that, well, if everyone's doing it, I should do it. Because like my personal thing is, I think it's the most boring thing possible when you're playing Persona for your first time with that like 100% guide. Like, yes, you're going to experience everything. Yeah, like it's more fun to kind of make it feel like your own life. Whereas, like, I liked how it was presented here more of just, like, here's what everyone's doing. It's almost like a Twitter feed, but, like, really, really messy and really, really, like, gross and stuff for it. But, yeah, I forgot how much, like, that was in there and that I really liked it. But the other thing I wanted to ask you was, so the SOS feature kind of being in there in terms of, like, helping you get rescued, giving you extra SP and MP, why do you think they kind of dropped it for future titles? Because it was really weird of, like, it was never overwhelming, and like it didn't give you a lot, but it definitely was something that if you were active could help.
It was more helpful at Yukiko's dungeon because in proportion to how much HP and SP you had at the beginning, it felt like a lot, but the amount stayed the same over the course of the game. So I don't know. Otherwise it would feel like easy mode or too much of a crutch in that sense, maybe.
Well, and another thing I wanted to talk to you about was, people don't really talk about this a lot, but it happened maybe a year or two after it, but do you know the reason why they actually included the SOS feature?
No, I just thought it's a nice gimmick to include with because it's on the Vita.
So what is a very similar feature in another game that is just like the SOS feature? Not in terms of health, but mostly in terms of messages and looking from other people.
Mm-hmm. No, and I don't know, and I'm actually kind of not following what you're getting at.
So this might seem a bit of a weird one at first, but there's actually a tie to this I completely forgot about that Atlas is very tied to. The system was actually inspired by Demon Souls and Dark Souls. And if you remember,
oh yeah,
Atlas published and were amazingly surprised at Demon Souls being very popular. So Atlas Japan got so much feedback from it at the time of like, hey, this is a really interesting online premise of having other people in your world, but it's still single player. They're assisting you, but they might be able to leave messages and leave that bit of a personality for it. So what's really funny is even though Atlas Japan had nothing to do with the From games, that connection to how big, because that was their biggest Western title at the time by far, and Japan had definitely noticed, and it was so funny of like, obviously there's not a lot else similar with Dark Souls and Persona, but the fact that Demon Souls was so popular and prevalent at the time that it actually added this feature into Golden. But yeah, it is one of those weird ones of like, I don't really like kind of like get it otherwise for it, but yeah, it was one of those fun things of like, man, I just completely forgot about that. And I'm actually I'm loading up now to find my nearest Velvet Room, but if you have any messages on yours that you want to pull out, please feel free to go for it, because I'm ready to go down memory lane.
Yeah, I'd actually like to start with my own message, because that's pretty, I was more going for I'm in character, and I picked Naoto's profile picture, and my message is, what the? Army of idiots? Calm down and think. Yeah. This is not... Yeah.
This shows how old I might be, but my brain is, I think I've been up for like 30 minutes at this point. I am in the normal day. Where would be the easiest place to find the Velvet Room door in the real world?
I'd say the shopping district.
Oh, thank you. I was trying to remember if it was actually in Junes or not, and I completely forgotten for it.
No, it's the shopping district.
The giant blue door right here.
Yeah, shopping district south. That's the one I'm using as well.
So for you, was that like your constant message you had always had, or did it ever change very much?
Oh, let me think back. I think that's what I typed in as soon as I was aware of the feature. Yeah. I don't know.
I just found mine, and I apparently wanted everyone to think I came off as a shill and a Neanderthal. Mine is, of course, Yosuke, because I have the best taste in men. And it just says, TV is good, exclamation point. Everyone loves Golden, exclamation point. Really deep. Really deep stuff there. So I was really reaching for the moon there. And I don't know what this says about mine, so I have 168 rescues. How many rescues did you have?
354.
Yeah, you were clearly much nicer than I was. Or played online a lot more.
Yeah, I guess that's more like it.
But yeah, like, it was such like a fun little thing of like, this never really changed the way it plays, and I wonder if like the fact that it's not really remembered is maybe because it was kind of stuck to a game that took like 8 years to get a port. But this is easily something I would love to see come back, just because it's like, it was something of like a kind of nice way to add a personality, while also like it could have been easily added upon in other ways of like having other character icons maybe as like unlockables, or having extra features you might be able to do in New Game Plus or something like that. But yeah, I'm like just looking at all the phrases here and it is completely taking me back. So, yes, do you want to go through, and I guess we can kind of trade off until we run out of messages left from God knows how long ago?
Yeah. I guess I could also mention the standard message that's there. That's with Narukami's profile picture, and the standard message says, "Rescue, let's go, everyone hold out."
I completely forgot there was like a default on there.
Yeah, that's the default message. Alright. Yeah. Let me check what I have found, or because
Also, I'm going to have a very small amount, unfortunately, for some of them, because I have my current save file is up to date, but I think I lost some log rescues, so my earliest ones I have are from,
oh,
like, 2014 for some reason. So I might not have too many.
there's this feature with the square button where you can protect the log itself.
See, if I knew, which is funny because I was still doing the podcast at the time, I should have known that this was going to be podcast gold 9 years ago, and I should have locked every single one of them. What? Although I will say, one of the things I love about it, because not only does it let you see other people's messages when they rescued you, or no, when you rescued them,
Yeah.
I love it says where and the time and place. So it's like
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
like, no, it's the bathhouse and bath number 5, and there were one rescuer or maybe 2 rescuers for like each floor. It's like I love it. Like it gets down to that minute detail of like, hey, I saved your ass at this time and right here, and I'll never let it go.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I can go first if you want
Yeah.
to pull up a good one.
Yeah.
So, also, I
Yeah.
forgot about this. You can basically dox them. So they have their name for their Yunarakami, but if you press square, it'll give
Yeah.
you their PSN ID. So,
Yeah. I was
shout out
wondering if we
to...
would.
No, I'll be nice and not do it. We'll use their canon name. So, Nero Sparta, I want to give you an extra shout out for this one of Serve in Large. Everyone can hold out for it. Which I was like, you know what? I don't know what you're getting at, Nero, but I appreciate the tone, and I hope the name is a slight reference to Johnny Young Bosch, because it would make me feel very, very
Oh yeah, that's
appreciative.
right.
Oh my gosh, I did not know you could max out rescues. I found a guy on here as a 999 rescues, which I bet he did not
Yeah.
stop at 1 before 1,000. That's funny.
Yeah, there are 3 ones that I know too, or I think the ones that I like the most are 2, and there's one with Igor as the profile picture, and it says, "Oh no, your large club bummed Nanako-chan."
If you know, the only thing that
Yeah.
this feature was missing, honestly, was like a like feature or like a reaction feature of
Yeah.
I found this message very not helpful.
I I don't think this message was there to help you, but yeah. And there's another one with you as a profile picture again, and the protagonist's name is Miska Mannheim, and they said, "I'm doing Riese, handshake your wand."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I have another one here. This is from Yuzuru Otanashi. Chie and Yukiko will be lovers. Which I just appreciate, just the determination for that relationship.
Yeah, that's funny you read that out, because I actually at some point had a similar message in my log as for myself as well, that I wrote to that extent.
I appreciate I will say there are I think couple of games there's like that one relationship that people just get really really behind. Like what's kind of funny is like there's no girl on girl relationship in P5 that kind of even comes close to like the Chie and Yukiko friendship thing, because like really it feels like all the girls in Persona 5 especially really just never hang out with each other. Like it's just one of those things of that's how you can get away with dating all of them. They're never going to talk to each other and find out. They only hang out together when you're there. So it's one of those funny things of like the only girl on girl relationship like that's even remotely positive is with a girl who gets pushed off a roof. So we don't get to have too many bonds of like stuff like that for it. But it does kind of suck because like I feel like they, especially because you always play as men so much, there's always lots of examples of male male friendships, but never a lot of female female positive friendships.
Yeah, this is, I think I hope also that they're starting, or they're getting their writing to reflect on those friendship dynamics in a better way, I guess.
I'm more optimistic, especially after Royal. Royal didn't have a lot of opportunities to fix that, but the few examples of even the little moments like when you would talk to, well, not even you, when your teammates would talk to each other before they had to come up with the idea for their Showtime attack, I liked that. Like, if you could find a way to make that kind of naturally happen and not just be a scripted moment, like, that would be fun. Of like, give An and Haru a reason to talk to each other. Like, give Makoto a reason to talk to Yusuke. Like, stuff like that would be, like, a really, really good, like, way of just not feeling, because, like, yes, you play as this character, but, like, all of these people should still feel like actual characters still, even when you're not playing next to them.
I guess that's also uh, what I'm getting is that some people like P3 more because there are more there are more relationships within the group that are not tied to the MC, and make the cast more feel alive, I guess.
No, that's a great point. That especially never gets brought up a lot, of like talking about characters feeling like they existed in the world before the main character touched them. Like, the biggest joke in the world is so true, though. Like, seriously, Haru does not exist until the third semester. It doesn't matter what they did in Royal, or the seeing her in, like, the opening cutscene, or the, like, fireworks scene. Until you have her in the story, she basically was not a person until then. But, like, you look at other things, like looking at Akihiko and Mitsuru's relationship. You look at even something like Kanji's relationship, just like how he felt like a presence in the world before he was part of the story, as even just like the stereotyped like blonde bully kid.
Yeah, that I guess we'll have to see how however the franchise develops, however the writers are developing in that.
Hopefully not my living up to my motto of forever optimistic and always disappointed. Like, they have to fix it next time. Oh, I will say this, just because, to at least not say nothing about Persona, all this. I don't know if you've played this, but it gives me another good example to shill for this. An amazing game with inner character relationships that do not revolve around the protagonist is 1000% Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Everyone in that world.
I played it. It's good. It's good for what it is, definitely, and I enjoyed the gameplay, and the story, and the world itself is serviceable. Sounds too harsh for me, but it. I was there when the first teaser trailer with the concept itself was revealed, and when TMS was actually presented the way it is, I did feel a stinge somewhere, but I warmed up to it, and then I got or rather my friend got the Switch version, and I played that last summer, and yeah, I had a good time.
Nice. I always appreciate people kind of like looking past its initial reveal and always being like, let's focus on what it is, not what it was going to be for it. But yeah, like, would you agree at the least, like, that entire story could still happen without the protagonist being there? Like, those characters in that like world that they had kind of set up, they all had relationships, they all had jobs, they all had lives, they all had like reasons to kind of be there. The only real kind of push your protagonist ever does, outside of being just the stereotypical protagonist leader, and thank God he's not silent, is he's the like reason the one girl and probably gets into idling as much as possible. But besides that, everyone else is kind of doing their own path in life.
Yeah, that's it. That's.
So I have another one here from Nolan Matters with 760 rescues. So shout out to Nolan with the excellent taste in profile pictures of the rarely seen Marie. I know Marie is not the most loved character in the franchise, but I have a very soft, nostalgic spot for her. Who says, I am Revival. Excuse me? Thought so.
Yeah, that's a certain snarkiness that really fits.
Yeah, I was like, I felt like they were like channeling Big Marie energy for that
Yeah,
one.
that's what I meant. Yeah.
So what about for you? Do you have any other ones lined up?
Let me check. I I guess that's it. I thought this was more interesting on my end, but
Well, that is why we have two Vitas here to bounce at least
yeah.
back off and forth. So I have a very cursed one. So this person was not very original with their name, but thankfully I will not actually dox them. They just went with the canon route, so they called themselves Yu Narakami. 54 rescues, which is really funny because they were pretty late in the game for this one. But had a Marie picture, and this one I just really enjoyed because of how juvenile it was. Lovers
Yeah.
try woohoo like sweet delicious. That's one word. Sweet delicious
Yeah.
bear. Oh yeah. Let me just repeat that one more time with no sounds. Lovers try woohoo like sweet delicious bear. Oh yeah. If I could like comments, I would like that one. Like, seriously, you know what's really, like, really funny? Like, and I'm amazed with how many dumb gimmick accounts there are out there. How is there not
Yeah.
just like a like cringy or funny rescue log details Twitter account that just like posts random stuff they find?
Maybe we could start something like that. Ask everyone on the Discord who has those messages to just.
Everyone, dust off your copy of Golden, start playing it on PC, leave cringy messages, and just please find everything out there. Because it's one of those funny things. Like, this game is played by millions of people, but I feel like out of all the new features, it's like this is only maybe a little more popular than the Midnight Channel feature, where you look at all the bonus features. Like, that's it.
Hmm. Yeah. I guess we digged up a hidden gem in this game.
No, which I very, very much appreciate. Any reason to A, go down memory lane, and B, open my copy of Golden, which was funny because I literally had it in my Vita a couple of days ago. I was just playing through it because of the anniversary. But I have another
Ah,
one from this guy. Really committed to the Japanese bit. Last name first, first name last. So Narakami Yu committed very
yeah.
hard. I appreciate to the RP. Um, and also had you as a profile picture. Said Jack Frost is happy because everyone are perfect. Which was, I thought, very bad English, but very wholesome. So thank you, Narakami Yu.
Yeah. I guess I have a similar message, but I don't think it's the same person because they named themselves Yu Narukami. Jack Frost is curious thanks to Senpai Bye Bye.
Senpai died, so he's just a little curious. I have another one from Mysterious Yu Narakami. 25 rescues, but with a Risei Kujikawa picture. It says, calm down, fools. Teddy is dangerous. ...
Oh, this tells a story.
This one was like, listen, I've been stuck on the Shadow Teddy boss for at least 9,000 years. Also, this one is like weirdly mysterious almost. So it's by Ao Yukimura with 200 plus rescues and just had the tarot cards as their profile picture. Oh no, oh no, hee ho, hee ho.
Wow.
Which I don't know if it's because we're in October. I'm getting like spooky vibes from that. Like that like tells me
Yeah.
like someone got murdered after having to drop that message.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned how you could expand this feature by uh, unlocking more profile pictures. Some of the personas or most prominent Kaneko designs from like Jack Frost and Pyro Jack and so on could expand this
Hmm.
now that you read this message.
It's like it is really funny. I feel like when it comes to certain ideas for the series, there's so many times where they come up with a really great idea and almost no one uses it or no one really messes around with it. Like, I
Mm.
loved this feature and completely forgot that I love it. Much like I'm sure how in 10 years I'll find someone to do a podcast. They're like, hey, do you remember the Thieves' Den? And I'm like, do I remember the Thieves' Den? Let me tell you how many hours of Tycoon I've played. But it's like one of those things of just no one talks about it. So it's just like it's so weird for it. But I hope that if anything, this like sparks somebody to like go back, open their copy of Golden, and like head into the Velvet Room and look at what weird messages you might find. Because like my last one I have here, I very much appreciate. This person, literally the last dungeon in the game, 5 rescues, by Keima Katsugi, has an Igor picture, just says, he ho is strength. Aw yeah, Jack Frost. And the fact that like this person, like I literally rescued at like the last dungeon, and they like, it was like, nah, I've done this like 5 times. They just made it even better. It was like, it's like thank you random Igor profile picture. You've made my traverse through this game a little because it just adds like a little personality to everything.
Yeah. I'm scrolling through my messages and I think I found another one. The profile picture is you with glasses and they named themselves Andreas Eichberg. I think that's actually someone German that named themselves like that. And the message is, rescue your senpai master, everyone be aw yeah.
I will say it was really funny of like a large amount of it was always people just kind of doing Japanese names, which I definitely get, but I play these games like a sad American foreigner, of I always just use my real name to kind of like do my own form of like RPing and stuff. Yeah. So like I just hope somewhere out there someone just kind of like who named themselves Spencer Presley? Like this does not fit with this cast at all. Like, what is happening here? But it was always like one of those funny things. Like, for choosing your name, I know like it's not very original for it, but it was just always it never feels weird to me, even though in retrospect I feel like it should. You know?
Yeah, I think that's the part of role playing for yourself. And how much do you see yourself, or do you want to project yourself into the game? How much do you just control the person or the protagonist as the protagonist? That's an experiment, I guess.
So for you, when you're starting a game, obviously it definitely depends on like the kind of game for it. But like with Megaten and stuff, when you do get a chance to put your name in, like what do you normally try and go with?
So for this playthrough of Persona 4, I picked myself a Japanese name, Haku Yamamoto.
Okay.
And with Persona 5, I started naming my protagonist with a unisex first name to reflect that I am still a girl and controlling a male character, so I could somewhat more identify myself with the name, if that makes sense. And I named myself Hotaru Kimura in there.
That's like one of my secret predictions that I would love for this to come true is a reason the main protagonist for SMT5 looks so sexually ambiguous is so that they're just going to do that with every game, so they don't have to make 2 different protagonist designs. Just make them look so androgynous you'll never know which unless you really, really care about it. So it'd be one of those funny things like, well, it's a lot of work to make like 2 different models, so let's just make a guy who looks really feminine but still has masculine features.
Yeah, maybe that's how you get everyone covered.
Which is funny, because then I feel like what's so funny about it is, like, while it sounds probably lazy on the outside, it's probably one of the most unique facets of the game is its protagonist design.
And I'm thinking about the English voice actor that recently got announced, Casey Mangillo, and from what I heard, they're non-binary as well. So
literally perfect casting.
On a meta level, there are more connections there, at least for me, in that sense.
No, yeah, exactly. Like, whoever was in charge of like that casting for it, I don't know if that was on purpose, like if they were going out of their way to look for someone who was like NB or whatever, but I was just like, that. There you go, 10 out of 10. It was such a good choice. I thought there's no way we're going to get this. Like, there's got to be something wrong. Like, there's got to be a catch with it. Like, all right, it's not Habino, but Troy Baker. Like, oh no, we can't do that. You're just giving me all kinds of mixed messages now. Well, Anna, I have loved going down Persona 4 Golden memory lane with you, but unfortunately I have to get dragged out of the TV and back into the real world. So
Yeah.
before we wrap this up, I am not boosting you up at all. I genuinely loved this topic, so thank you so much. Where can
Yeah.
people
Thank
find
you.
you if you are so inclined to interact with strangers online?
I'm not that active online. I just have my Discord username, and uh, I, I'm just more passive on the internet, I guess.
That is okay. Trust me, there are tons of people out there who are like that. But no, it is always nice to get to interact with you whenever you are popping on in the Discord or whatever for it. So if you guys are in the SMTN Discord, that is where normally you can always kind of chat with other people. I thought it was so funny. I had to remind someone recently. It's like you guys can at me for anything. Like this is my Discord. I don't look at any other Discords. I'm not hanging out in other people's Discord. I'm not getting added all the time. So people can at me for the dumbest reasons ever. I have no other reason to look at Discord otherwise. So yes,
Right.
I don't know how we're going to transition this into the next one. So I guess we will just awkwardly say goodbye or see you next time. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you in part 2 of question mark. So goodbye.
Question mark. Goodbye.
SMTN.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to part question mark of Question Mark Podcast. I am your mid-host, Spencer Presley, talking to another wonderful patron of the Shin Megami Tensei Network Patreon page. So for this part of the town hall, I am joined by Steven. Steven, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, relatively speaking. So,
So this is going to be kind of
please.
funny. You are like the first, at least in a very long time, guest I've had who actually sounds like you're calling me on the phone, and I kind of like it because I grew up on like talk radio, so I feel like I'm on a really shitty Howard Stern like knockoff podcast.
Oh, well, from someone who actually listened to Howard Stern on the radio back in the late '90s,
I was gonna say
sometimes the quality, the
I was
quality on his shows is not exactly top tier at times.
I was gonna say I feel like every Stern fan I used to know is like no I used to watch it I don't watch it anymore. I haven't listened to Stern in forever. Like when's the last time you listened to Howard Stern?
Oh, I'm really gonna show how old I am, but it was before when he was on a local radio station here in New York. He was on 92.3. I always remember the channel. And then when he went to satellite, I could never listen to him again because I never joined. I never took the, I never switched over. So
Just to date me even more, I feel like if you like talk radio, you picked a side for who you liked. I listened to Stern because I think my dad would listen to him sometimes, but I always listened to Opie and Anthony, like even before they were on Sirius.
yeah, I was definitely a Stern fan. I didn't listen to Opie and Anthony that much, so it was definitely
It was one of those things if you never listened to both. It was like you liked one and you never heard the other. That's how it was.
yeah. I think I was definitely more in the Stern camp on that side.
So unfortunately, this is not a talk radio podcast, although I would love so much for that to be a thing someday. But yes, we are here to talk about you or whatever the heck you want to talk about. But we need an introduction first because not everyone might not know who you are. So Stephen, how did you get into SMT/Persona? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I mean, it kind of roots itself in my love of JRPGs from a very long time. Unfortunately, as one of the more, I'll probably say more senior members of the team of the group. I mean, both age and actually, I think I just checked. I've been part of the group since October 14th of 2014. So that's kind of we're going on like 7 years now. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you're like
But
a year and a half maybe removed from when it would have started because I think this group started like September maybe of 2013. But
wow.
I always forget the exact because I know we started. There was a very long while where it was just on a forum, and then I think someone was like, "We got to get off a forum." And like, that's a good point. Let's stick ourselves on Facebook. No one will ever leave Facebook.
And I'm you know I'm except for the downtime yesterday, but the I may have just dated your podcast as well. But yeah, it definitely helps that you guys joined Facebook, and then I found it, and then I found your podcast, and it opened up another group of people that I could actually speak to about this Persona and SMT, because I was basically trolling around, or at least lurking around other like RPG groups and trying to figure out anyone who was talking about it, and I never really found a group that was talking about the Persona and SMT. But I had a very long history with JRPGs. As a teenager in the 90s, I actually started, well, I started earlier than that, but I really started collecting JRPGs when in the PlayStation 1 era. So I'm definitely too old sometimes. I try to collect as many of the JRPGs as I could back on the PlayStation 1. So that's kind of like how I was trying to get into it. And I'm actually, older me is trying to kick myself because I think Persona and Persona 2 on the PS1 was just coming out when I was really starting to collect this stuff. And I basically didn't have enough money at the time because I was collecting all the other JRPGs that were coming out on the PS1. And I was like, okay, I'm going to skip on Persona 2 because I remember the advertisement for it. And if one of these days I'll probably, if I can still find it. I have my magazine collection. Yes, still have those in my mother's basement somewhere.
Now I have to interject and ask, because again, much like talk radio, it's almost like there's always a different form of a war, whether it be consoles or whatever. Were you an EGM reader back in the 90s, or what were you? Were you like a Game Pro or a game fan? Like what did you collect?
I was collecting the EGM.
Okay.
And I didn't discriminate, so I did have a Game Pro subscription as well, so I had both of them. So, but I think I remember in a basement flood, I believe I had to ultimately get rid of my Game Pros, and I think I still have some of my EGMs. So I think, and I'll always remember the advertisements for Persona 2 because of the of the way they advertised it was basically with Maya with the big heart shirt on her boobs, and it was kind of like, this is how you're presenting the JRPG. I'm like, all right, okay. Well, that definitely got my attention in the advertisement. Ultimately, I had no more money to spend on JRPGs, and then when I ultimately got a job later on, is when I just tried to like buy up every single JRPG I could that came out on the PlayStation 2 back in the day.
Oh my
so
gosh,
that's when
man!
I
Yeah,
collected.
if it was hard collecting in the PS1 era, yeah, PS2 as a kid was really easy to be picky because there were just so many games all the time. Like I remember when I discovered that importing was a thing, I immediately dismissed it because I'm like, dude, I can barely afford what's coming out now. I can't imagine then looking at everything coming out in Japan and being like, let's get some of these games.
Oh, it was kind of crazy, and it was definitely I was on the fine line of, I know this is another discussion, but it was a fine line of like, I want to buy and play all originals, and the PS1 was definitely one of those systems that was very easily modded, and you could definitely find ways of playing games that you shouldn't be playing.
Oh yeah.
But I definitely was like, I have to support the developers. I tried to buy as much as I could, and then continue onward even to this day, even though that it's still so easy to hack a lot of the systems now, you kind of still want to still support them so that they're still putting out those games. At least that's in my mindset.
Oh, now here's a weird question. Speaking of like supporting devs, I feel like very few companies were probably less popular than this, but like, do you remember Gaijin Works? Sorry, not Gaijin. Gaijin Works would have been what their current name was. Back in the day, it was, oh my gosh, I'm totally. They published Lunar, and they did a whole bunch of other games. Lunar publisher, PS1. I'm gonna kick myself in the butt when I remember their name. Working Designs.
Working Design.
Yes. That's, do you remember Working Designs games? They'd have these huge, elaborate, big boxes.
Oh yes, definitely. I kind of I have the Lunar special edition, Lunar big box design releases for Lunar 1, Lunar 2. I think they did Arc of the Lad.
I was just gonna say, I remember there's like a 4-disc Arc the Lad like set they did as well.
Yes, I have those, and they're sitting in my basement right now, and hopefully nothing ever happens to them. But they're still there, and they're still pretty mint. So.
One day when we stop caring about the things we bought for, there is that kind of funny thing of like knowing how much your collection is without ever having any intent of selling it is a weird thing. Because it's like I could make so much money if I just sold my collection for like a quarter of what it's worth, but I stress over the idea of getting rid of like anything.
I always tell my wife that if she ever gets really mad at me, and before she sells off all my stuff that's in the basement, that she definitely look up the price of some of the things, so that she's not going to be recorded on one of those videos of selling something like my Ark of the Lie collection for like $10, as opposed
Yeah,
to
that's been the fun thing of like teaching my wife, like from meeting her, be like, if you ever cheat on me, I will destroy your Vita collection, and then she'd be like, I will sell it all and keep all the money, and be like, you know what, that's a way more threatening thing then.
So it's and I have to look back at some of those like games and just like, oh no, like I know it's worth whatever X amount of dollars. I'm like, will I ever really sell it? And I find a hard time ever saying yes. But that's the hoarder in me, of course.
So the weird one with me is I love all systems and all things for it, but I will say actually in terms of selling things, I have very little attachment to like certain generations of things. Of like I sold a lot of DS games, I sold a lot of Wii games, and like I've even gotten rid of some current Switch games that are like quote unquote rare, but I just don't have a lot of nostalgic for them when I have them on like other systems. So like even something like I sold Dragon's Lair on Switch. It's like I already have it on PS4. Like I don't need 3 copies of even something like Ashante. Like it's just one of those weird ones of like if I can play it on a system and I like that system a lot, I have no reason to kind of have like multiple copies unless it's a very specific thing. Because I'm very much in the I do not like the full set mentality for myself. I know other people are out there like that, but the idea of like looking at the full, even just PS1 library and getting all of those, even just RPGs, sounds dreadful. Because like I know I don't want most of those games.
And some of those games definitely were terrible. Going back, like as much as I still like having them, I've tried to boot up like a few of those old games, and some of them are just really bad. I've been trying to play. Was it like Thousand Arms? I think that was Atlas released as well. Yeah, it was Atlas released. Thousand Arms. It was a very terrible dating sim JRPG from like the mid to late 90s.
Oh my god, I forgot about this. Yes. There were Atlas was let me remind everybody. Atlas was not known for quality for a very long time. Like they had some weird ones, but then also they had other ones that like you wouldn't think of were Atlas, but Atlas was actually how I got introduced to Guilty Gear on the PlayStation 1 because they did the very first Guilty Gear.
And it's definitely like again taking my younger self. I kind of wish I didn't, spend the money on Thousand Arms, and I rather have spent it on Persona 2. But
I mean, even with that, I feel like there were a lot of years to get Persona 2 for close to MSRP, because like there were copies on Amazon, I think reprinted in like 2008 for like that at least lasted almost a year or so.
I'm also kicking myself because that was roughly around when I came back and started really actually having time to play some JRPGs. Because I have to admit, there was a big block of time where I was just collecting, and I just sat there.
Oh.
And then I like found some time to actually play. It was probably around like 2008 era, and it was right around I think it was I want to say Persona 3 or 4 when that was released on the PS2.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I got it like some time to actually just to play some games. Like I found like a little bit more work life balance around that time. So that was like that time, and I think that sounds just like it was just after when I could have picked up Persona 2 again. But to go back to one of your other what you were just mentioning, I'm definitely a big hoarder of video games. I still have my Atari 2600 cartridges somewhere, so that's how bad it is. I have my Atari 2600, my NES 8-bit games, my Super Nintendo games, and if I didn't lose my Game Boy Advance stuff in a flood, I would still have those as well.
Oh man. Yeah, because Game Boy Advance is known for their structural integrity. Yeah, just looking at water is gonna break a Game Boy collection.
Yeah.
That hurts a lot. So I have to ask you,
Yeah.
because you are way more of an adult than I am, not even bringing age into this, just in terms of responsibility. So I have to ask you, how do you manage wanting to play games along with having a wife and then having a family and then worst of all having an actual job to afford all of those things? Like, where does that work-life balance happen?
So it definitely is very tough. But I end up basically spending either an hour or two before everyone wakes up, so I can actually one work out and play some games. Sometimes I do one or the other, and then it's wait till everyone's asleep. So and then I sneak in another hour or two. But that's pretty much it. And I'm lucky to get maybe 7 to 8 hours a week playing games. So,
So when a game has 100-hour long storyline, you go, okay, I'll beat this in a year.
well, Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, I did end up trying to sneak in a couple extra hours. So I probably snuck in like maybe 2 or 3 hours a week, 2 or 3 more extra hours a week. So I was able to finish those. I think I finished Persona 5 in about 2 months, 2.5 months of playing, and then Royal I think I beat in about 2 months because I think it had a few more faster game play mechanics, so that helped me out a lot, so that I could kind of get through that one. But yeah, definitely it takes a while, which is also goes into the other love that we share, which is the PlayStation Vita, because I usually have to commute to work prior to last year. That extra hour of commute time would be great for me trying to catch up on playing both to work and coming back home, because that's 2 hours there. So like any role playing games on the Vita, that was a JRPG machine for a bit. So I played a ton of games that way on the Vita because of that. And that's why it always has a special place in my heart because of that.
So, like, kind of going back to your family, though, does anyone else in your family like any of the games that you like? Are you, like, the only one who plays? Like, I always, like, tell Mary my greatest fear is, like, watch, we have a huge family, and just none of our kids like playing any games.
Unfortunately, I think I'm the only one who really enjoys playing video games, the games that I play.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say my son has just started playing some video games, but it's more well, somehow he became really good at Mario Kart on the Switch. So he's been really enjoying Mario Kart. I got him into Mario Golf on the Switch. So I'll that's one game I get to play with him, and he enjoys watching me play Street Fighter. That's pretty much it.
Oh my
and
gosh,
then
I have like the weirdest thing of, I guess, Mary's nieces, not any, oh actually yeah, I guess her nieces and nephews, just even though like they're crazy, like the ones who are like even 5 and under, will just for whatever reason they immediately take to like fighting games, and not like in a I like to watch you play it, and then like I want to learn how to play it way of like they would like spend their time like if they could watch stuff as like little kids just watching people play like Marvel vs. Capcom or Street Fighter, and then when they are playing it immediately know how to do it. And watching like a 4-year-old like beat up someone who's like 18 at a fighting game is very weird. It's like you feel like you're like watching like Air Bud.
I have to admit, I'm definitely can understand the experience. I have some nieces who are like really into to Smash, and they watched all the videos, so they learned every character, and they know that I'm quote unquote decent at some fighting games. So they're like, "Oh, come play Smash with us," and then I'm like, "All right." And then they just school me within like the first couple minutes, because I'm like I've never gotten to Smash, and I'm like I have no what I'm doing. They're like, stop button mashing. Stop
Is it
stop
is
repeating
that
the same
weird?
move.
Because like we're recording this on the day of Sora just got revealed. I have to ask, when like the internet is losing its mind over a Smash reveal and you don't care about Smash, is it just like, okay?
Pretty much. Yeah.
I cannot relate less to not caring about anything Smash Brothers related.
I have to admit the last time I really cared about Smash was learning that Joker was going to be DLC. So
And
I
it
actually,
was all downhill from there.
yeah, that was pretty much it. I remember going to, I actually like worked near the Nintendo store in the city, and the special edition Smash Brothers came out with a special controller. So I'm like, all right, fine, I'll pick it up, get Smash, and also like sign up for the season one DLC so I can get Joker. And then I proceeded to be very terrible and to try to unlock all the characters in Smash, and it was just like it was definitely a chore. And then I was trying to learn the play mechanics for Joker, and I was like, I'm just not getting this. And I haven't really touched it since my nieces started to say, "Come play with us." I'm like, all right. So
So for you then currently, what have you been playing recently, and what's at like the top of your pile of shame in terms of like Megaten stuff? Of like, man, I don't know when I'll get around to it, but I have to get around to this eventually.
oh, it's definitely going to be a shame, but I'll go to the game that I'm playing first right now. So I'm actually alternating between um, Mary Skelter Final. I just picked that up, and Caligula Overdrive, the first one, trying to finally really get through it so I can get ready for the sequel. But and my shame pile actually is not completing SMT3 yet. It's still sitting at like I think I just got I think I'm just out of I forgot which part I'm at, but
It's all brown. It's all brown to me.
yeah,
Hard to remember.
exactly.
I will say the nice thing about Nocturne is Nocturne's actually not that long. Like especially if you don't go out of your way for stuff, it's pretty easy to kind of blow through it within around like 30 to 40 hours.
Okay. So I think I put in about 15 to 20, somewhere between under 20. But it's like I think I put like 15 to 16
Oh
hours
yeah,
into it so far.
you're definitely at least halfway then. But I
Yeah.
will say this: assuming you're playing all those on the Switch, if I've done this a few times, but I don't have a treadmill in my house like where I live. But I used to love in like I'd like go stay at like someone's house if they had it there. Put like on a big TV in a room where a treadmill is, and then just use the detached Joy-Con so you can just run or walk on the treadmill while still playing.
That's
Like
a
that.
great idea.
Well, especially for like RPGs, like for an action game, like I can't imagine playing Skyward Sword and having to swing my arms around while trying to run. But like for an RPG where you're really just pressing up, down, and A bunch, like it was a good fit because it didn't really matter what your pace was for it. But yeah, I would say don't feel bad about Nocturne, especially just because I think now that the HD release came out this year, there are so many people now who that's kind of on their pile of shame. Like it's better to have something that's not a super crazy long game. Like it's imagine if you're like, oh, I got to get around to Final Fantasy 14. I'm like, okay, do you got 200 hours?
That's yeah. That doesn't even go into the pile of other games that have kind of that's the essence. Nocturne's on the top of the list right now that I really want to finish up, and I haven't done it yet. But it's sort of like the pile of other games I have underneath that is kind of bad. I know I've been collecting all the other series, the Neptunia series. I've gotten all those games, and they're kind of just sitting there.
Speaking
And
of people who've been in the Facebook group a long time, there was definitely an era where me getting into Hyperdimension Neptunia in 2014 just had to bleed into the group of like any time because there was an era of like maybe 2015 to 2017 where it felt like every 3 months a Hyperdimension Neptunia game was coming out, and every time we would talk about it in the group, and someone brought it up recently for something I think because of like the one of the games that just come out, and someone was like, "This isn't about Hyperdimension Neptunia." I'm like, "Hey, if you've been in this group long enough, you'll know that there was definitely a lot of Hyperdimension Neptunia fans at one point."
oh, Spencer, sorry, I just realized that I just got a call on my other line. And
no, you were good. I was about to say, I think I'm already running you over there. So, do you want to say goodbye and tell people if you have any online social media stuff where they can find you, or just say goodbye?
I think I'll just say bye because I can't really do social media stuff
No,
actually
no
because
worries.
of my work stuff. But I'll
I
just
kind of
say
figured. Well, I appreciate you letting me be able to talk to you a little more. Hopefully, we can find a better time later and do this again for you, so we can actually get past your origin story.
all right. Thanks, Spencer. All
See
right,
ya.
bye.
SMTN.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spencer Forgot to Part and Number These, and who knows what order he's going to put them in. But hi, I am Shin Megami Tensei Network's podcast host, Spencer Presley, and joining me for this super special and sensual patron town hall is Chris. Chris, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So, Chris, when we're not gushing about Whataburger and talking about other things only the finest of people in the certain aspects of the world can enjoy for delicacies, who are you, what do you do that you want people to know, and how the heck did you get into this fandom?
So, Chris, I'm a Latin teacher at a high school here in Texas, and I don't know, I got into the fandom actually for the same reason that I ended up as a Latin teacher, is that I was into mythology when I was younger, and you know, as you grow up and are a nerd and play video games, you start noticing that mythological themes get used a lot, and very often they're used kind of just carelessly. There's like, you know, Fire Emblem 4 names a bunch of places after you know, Irish gods or mythological figures, or Final Fantasy gives Shiva tits and makes her icy, makes him or her and icy, and then a friend of mine kind of turned me on to Megaten, and it's specifically because he knew I was into mythology and into that kind of background, and so he's like, hey, here's a series that kind of takes these myths seriously, and sort of really gives them historical context and cultural context, and plays around with their relationships and their parallels. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of games that take cues from different eras of mythology, but there's not a lot that really kind of do it in a way that's either like very like respecting of its original source, or doing it in a way that you might kind of like learn something about it. Of like, I love God of War, but I would say until the most recent God of War, you were not going to learn anything about Greek mythology outside of, boy, Zeus sure gets his head smashed in good. Like, I think that's like one of the aspects of like why I've been really happy with the new God of War, of like watching them bring in aspects of Norse mythology, which is still such untapped potential, of just like showing all these different aspects of these characters, and then doing my favorite part of then using them in ways we never would have expected, of like looking at these characters and being like, what the heck is like this character's known to die here because of this, but they're still alive, so what does this mean? So like, I love the idea of like twisting around and kind of playing with mythology, because it's like, at the end of the day, it's been so long since their creation and everything else for it, there's no reason we have to kind of have that strict, rigid, this, like, Zeus is always like this, Odin is always like this, and that's kind of, I think, one of the things I've really liked a lot about different mythologies throughout the world, and especially with Megaten and stuff, is like they always straddle that line of having an interesting interpretation while always still feeling like they've not lost that core value of that mythology. Like, so no one hopefully is going to look at a character and be like, hey, I'm Egyptian, this is really offensive.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, we talk about interpretation, right, and how they can change, and we look at Megaten interpretations, but I remember one of the things that floored me was in Greece, I saw a temple to Hermes, where Hermes had a jackal head, like the god Anubis, because it was an area where a bunch of, you know, Egyptians had moved, and they had set up a temple to Hermes, and they worshipped him as Anubis because through that syncretism, there was this idea that, well, they both lead the souls of the dead to the underworld. That's their job, so maybe they're the same god. So it straight up is Hermes with the winged sandals and the caduceus hat and the not Thyrsus, what's it called? The Caduceus, sorry. But he's got the jackal head of Anubis, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like fusion of both gods. And I thought, so this idea that like, every depiction of Zeus has to look like what he looked like at the Temple of Olympia is just not even reflected in history. So I love that idea of being able to reimagine and remix these mythologies in kind of a syncretistic way.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always one of those interesting things of like, especially as a still current Disney fan, kind of going into the mythology and different interpretations. I think it's always really funny of like, I think Disney does a really great job of bringing very different takes on a lot of different mythology, whether it be something like Hercules or whatever, and just being like, hey, this is super off what any of his original interpretations should be for so many characters, but kind of dipping people's feet into that sort of like world of mythology without them really knowing it. Like, if you made a movie for kids and you had to be accurate about Greek mythology, you would either be lying to them or having to make it a very hard R.
Right. Well, and of course, there's the other benefit if you're using mythology, and this is something that Disney knows all too well, is that it's royalty free. You're not going to have to pay. You're not going to have to pay the estate of Homer for the use of his characters. It's one of those things where, looking at those old myths, I know, remixing them like that and making them shallow for kids, sure, whatever. But I mean, the Bible gets sanitized for kids. We don't talk about the people of Sodom trying to rape some angels when we're, telling kids about that kind of stuff. So, every religion has always kind of had that, or at least, in the modern era, has that child-friendly version of it. And so, yeah, it's interesting to have. I just got the image in my head of the demi-kids version of Mara.
Yeah. I mean, that's another one of like, I think it's way too easy to just be like, oh, you're babyfying something, or you're not like respecting the origins or like the source material of it. But like, I just like that, like, another interpretation is always just kind of an interesting take on something, as opposed to I can't think of any time I've looked at something and been like, oof, this is a bad take on a character.
I still I'm a little grumpy about reusing the Strange Journey Demeter image. That's because she looked like that for a very particular reason in SJ, and I don't know. I'm curious how they continue to justify it. But other than that,
so I have to ask, and please don't take this the wrong way. I hope are your students aware you're the cool teacher? And if you're not, what high competition does your school have?
So about a week ago, my kids had just finished a lesson on the worship of Isis in the Roman period, right as the Daily Demon video for Isis came out. And so I just showed it in class, and they were like, "Check, what the heck are you doing?"
Okay, not without revealing yourself too much. Are we talking like pre-high school or post-high school?
High school.
So I had a really funny thing. I had a really funny thing happen of showing. Hold on, you're here and you can answer this. How old would you say the nieces are?
Yeah, how old are they?
Not a good sign when you have to ask. They're like 9 to 15, right? Like around there? Oh my gosh. This should not be... There we go. 8 to 13. I was showing an 8 to 13-year-old with no context about anything with Shin Megami Tensei. I was showing them a bunch of daily demon reveals because they like Pokemon. And I was like, I wonder if like a child who liked Pokemon, what they think of no context introduction to these characters. And it was so funny of like, to them... It wasn't about like what the character's from. It's just you're just like the most shallow interpretation of what they think of a character, and it was very interesting of the things they picked up on, like not viewing them as scary or weird or grotesque. Of just like, oh, that's like oh, that's an interesting dog, or like, oh, that's like a weird looking lady or like a bird or something. It was very weird of like getting their like very guttural reactions to something they have like no stake in the game for.
Right, and it's funny because some of the demons are mostly humanoid, right? A Kuhulain or a pixie is like something that you could show a kid. Jack Frost is the mascot for a reason. But when you show that, Artemis to somebody and you're like, why do her knees have tits? That's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I hadn't even thought about that. That for some people, that some of those that we kind of view as grotesque because we're sort of used to the way mythological depictions happen and just the way characters are depicted in media. That for a kid, they're still kind of learning what's normal. They're still encoding media, I guess.
Yeah, that was like kind of funny watching the reaction to something like Thor recently, of like Thor in God of War sequel getting announced, and people being like, "Oh, gross! Why has he got like a beer belly?" I'm like, not every version of Thor is Chris Hemsworth, everybody.
Right. I see. I haven't owned a PlayStation, a Sony console since the PlayStation 2, so I actually have very minimal exposure to dad bod of war. So when I saw the new Thor design, I was like, yeah, you know what? No, that's right. That's a proper Viking Thor.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even other situations of, like, take another really popular character that has more interpretations than you can shake a stick at. Like, look at a Loki. Like, there have been almost as many interpretations as Loki as there are probably, like, the most common of, like a werewolf or something like that. Like, a very, like, simple Anglo-Saxon, like, mythology creature like a werewolf has probably been imagined as many times as different Lokis out there in mythology.
Oh, yeah. And you have all of these, I don't know, and each culture or each perspective kind of brings a different thing to it. I think that's one of the reasons one of the other reasons that I kind of value Megaten is, especially when they're interpreting non-native mythological figures, right? Like, you figure they've got a pretty good handle on Buddhist and Shinto stuff, but when they're tackling, these Norse or Greco-Roman or, I guess have they done much from African religion? Not really.
No, I remember covering at the time for the podcast, it was a big deal. We were getting like out of the Shinto Buddhist stuff for Apocalypse. Of like, oh my God, finally, like we were getting like different aspects of mythology, because like for the longest time, and I think a lot of media is very guilty of this, is especially for Japanese games in terms of referring to things. It is, we are going off of what Japan knows because this is for Japan. Like, Japan doesn't necessarily know Norse mythology or Egyptian mythology, and God forbid African or even other, like, even the funniest thing now of, I'm totally going to forget her name, it's an absolute tongue twister, but like the fact that we're now like diving into aspects of like Filipino mythology and like other things
Manananggal or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're now getting to the point where like they could like have in like another game like a chupacabra, and it would not be that out of it, because like they're focusing on like just all over the place in terms of weird stuff. And that's actually what I want to ask you. Have you seen not the most recent trailer, but the last trailer where they kind of broke down and talked about the different branches of mythologies in the Bethel for SMT5?
And how they're gonna localize. First off, I want to remind you, La Chupacabra is in Strange Journey, SMT4, and for Apocalypse.
Thank you. I know that correction would have come hard and fast, so I appreciate it.
As a Texan, I have to, it's not quite our culture, right? I think La Chupacabra is Puerto Rican, but close enough. But no, I do kind of like the idea that they're sort of being mindful of the geographic locations of them, right? That we have an Egyptian, Khonshu. We have, what did they do? They did Khonshu for Egypt. They had Zeus for Greece, right? They had Odin, right?
So we have the different like aspects of Khonshu is for the Egyptian branch. Vasuki is for India, which also I cannot believe India got their own branch. I would not in a million years have thought they cared enough about it. Zeus, obviously, for Greece. And I'm curious what you think about this. I was a little disappointed that Odin just encapsulates all of North Europe. I kind of almost would have liked for there to be a differentiator between European mythology and Central American mythology.
So I'm okay, I guess, because we've got Odin, who was also Woden in like the more Eastern and Southern Germanic things. That German spelling is how we get Wednesday, right? So, so the idea of Odin being, because there's not quite a Thor in each of those like Germanic religions. There's not quite, but there is an All-Father Odin or something close to him in all of them. So,
Yes.
So I'm actually okay with that. I do. It's very Eastern Hemisphere focused, right? We don't have, like you said, we don't have anything from the West. We don't have a, Quetzalcoatl or anything like that. Nothing Mayan to any of those. But yeah, I'm curious actually if they're going to show up now that you mention it. Are we getting what is his name? Australian Boomerang Boy. Man, I just fought Raidu in a replay of Nocturne the other day, and he summons him. What's his name?
The little green one?
Yeah. Australian Aboriginal guy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm totally forgetting. It starts with an M.
Yeah.
I know it. Like, I know it on, like, the tip of my tongue, and it does not want to come out. Here we go. I got him. Mokoi.
McCoy, right. And it was like, he's also one of the early ones you could summon in 4. Like, he's been around, but, nobody remembers him after they fuse him into whatever.
I know. I always feel so bad for, like, that, because, like, a lot of them, like, they're kind of like that thing of, you have your early demons. Like, you're never going to run into, after, like, 10 hours, a pixie. Like, you're not going to normally care about a slime after the beginning hours and stuff, like, just because they always, like, change it up. But it is one of those funny things of, like, man, like, it'd be nice if they kind of mixed it up, because I always feel bad, like, there's just those couple of demons and stuff, or even, like, a Icor or whatever, like, man on horse. Like, you're not going to remember the first of 3 men on horse.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, especially when you have the ones that are almost palette swaps of each other. I think that's another thing that I remember coming in, because I came to Mega 10 late. I was probably in college when a friend of mine turned me on to him, and that was something that always impressed me. Also, is coming from like a Final Fantasy or a Dragon Warrior or some of those backgrounds where there are liberal uses of palette swaps, to see like everything's pretty unique. Even if you have a Barrett or whatever the lower level one is, I don't remember off the top of my head, right? Like they still have a different pose. They still kind of look different. It's not just a different color.
Now,
and that was something that jumped out at me, is that production value.
Now, like, as we've been talking about them kind of doing a lot more with mythology and stuff with it, has there been like one kind of missing for you that you're like, man, I don't know if there's a reason for it. Maybe you have a reason of why they probably haven't, of like, but I would really love it if they dipped their toe into this one.
I mean, as a classics Latin guy, I'm always about that, like, Etruscan myth. Do some of those early, like, Vatica, who's the psychopomp for Etruscan mythology, or what's his name? There's a guy who's the guardian of the underworld. He's kind of like the Charon or the Cerberus almost, for like the Etruscan view of the underworld, except his job is literally to walk around where the souls were kept in the underworld and beat them back with a stick. Like, that was just this god's eternal life, is just to walk around in a circle and smack souls with a stick, which I find absolutely spectacular. What a lot in life.
Now here's an interesting one. Oh, sorry, you go.
I was saying, I'd also like to see just generally some more. I like it when they do urban legends, right? I like it when they do something that's not quite a mythology, but like a modern myth, right? We have La Chupacabra, we have Mothman, we've got that kind of stuff, Wendigo sometimes. But I'd like to see some more of those. Oh, didn't they do what's it called? Like Orlon Energy? They did the Orlon Ghost guide for like 2 games.
Oh yeah. No, that's funny. I was actually going to ask you about like how you kind of felt about that, because specifically kind of fictional ones of like modern myths and stuff, but also almost like Central America or like current day kind of mythology that might not be specifically tied to one section, of like looking at other things. Especially one of my favorite things they started tying in with Persona 5 that like Persona 5 doesn't actually get a lot of cred for its mythology kind of like ties and stuff. I really liked them kind of going more contemporary with fiction, of like bringing something like a Lupin or bringing something like a Zora or a Carmen in as like a literary fan. I was like, hey, that's really interesting. Like, these are characters you've seen a million times, but like not in a setting like this, or especially their own interpretation. So like, I really kind of liked seeing more takes on like fictional mythology that has been done a lot, but not necessarily in a like monster hunting kind of game. Even like, because like we've gotten ties of like little ones of like something even similar like a Mothman or a Hellbiker are really kind of cool interpretations. But like, I feel like especially like this might come as a joke to some people. We're not. I guarantee you all, we are not that far away from them having a form of a Slender Man at one point in these games.
Yeah, I mean, so the way I'm from the Grant Morrison school of like, we're still making mythology. We just don't call it mythology yet. Of
Yes.
course, he's talking about comics and other literature like that, this sort of popular literature. That's what becomes mythology. Those become the sort of morality stories and the allegorical stories about, the human condition personified, right? That's all mythology needs to be. And so any sort of modern, and of course you can't get too modern because of that pesky intellectual property thing. But you can do sort of modern, like you said, like a Slender Man, these sort of internet. When are we going to get the VHS tape that possesses people?
Well, yeah, and I mean, it is funny though, like kind of talking about other aspects of like ones people probably don't even remember very well. Like, we literally have Terminator. Terminator is in this series. Like, we have La Llorona. We even have like the Jersey Devil, which people probably don't even remember was in the series. Like, that started in like the 90s and stuff. So like, while there are these like fantastical like aspects and stuff for it, but there are just so many like I like the weird almost left field ones. Like, a personal favorite of mine that I feel like I forget which actual aspect of mythology it comes from, and please correct me if you remember, but like the fact that like we even have like the Wicker Man. Like, the Wicker Man is just a big dumb stupid thing that burns people alive, and that's a demon in this game, and I'm like, I'm all here for it. This is just like, it's a thing that you would not expect, but I'm all here for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Wicker Men are kind of a European thing. I imagine they probably existed in other cultures, right? But it was a festival kind of thing. You'd gather around the Wicker Man and use it as like a scapegoat. The sins of the population would be gathered in it, and then you burn it. That's like a cleansing ritual every summer, I think. Like, you do it in midsummer, something like that. I don't know. My knowledge of the because this is like medieval European stuff, as far as I'm aware. It probably has earlier origins that I don't know about.
Everyone just watch Midsummer. It's a happy, fun, lucky movie. Everyone will enjoy it for
the
kids.
It's very uplifting. Very uplifting.
Probably more if you're a woman. If you're a woman in a troubled relationship, it's a very uplifting movie.
Very cathartic, if nothing else. I was also thinking of Chemtrail, right, is another recent one that we've had. That's kind of, I do love that. Again, it's like a conspiracy theory, kind of.
I mean, yeah, true. Like, we're again kind of going back to like fictional mythology and stuff, where but like we have like references even at this point to like Cthulhu and stuff. In other like I would love going even more of like into like space, like cosmic horror. I think is such a still untouched level of like mythological kind of learning and stuff, and I don't know if it's because it's very heady, it's kind of like harder to kind of summarize easy for it, but like I just think it's like I always think back of like how those are the most scary, because we all know like if we ever actually came into contact with something like that, it would legitimately just melt our brain. We would just have no idea how to like process it.
Nyarlathotep hasn't shown up since Persona 2, right? Has he been in anything recently?
Well, see, watch. I'm gonna say no, and then he'll be in something. But I have it pulled up here. I'm actually looking at all the different mythologies now, so I'll take a look.
Yeah, Nyarlathotep is.
I know like the last hilarious one that like definitely like blew my mind in terms of I cannot believe that it was in the series was when they brought back, and spoilers for anyone who has not played Persona 5, but saying it's in there is not that much of a giveaway. When they brought back Cadmon, I was like, wow, that is such a deep cut in so many ways. And yeah, Nyarlathotep has not been brought back since basically it was in Persona 1 and then both 2 and then never again.
Yeah, and then never again, man. Yeah, 'cause he's one of those very, very directly taken from the Cthulhu mythos. Who else do we have? We got, I'm trying to think of other, like, real cosmic horror kind of entities. Because, yeah, that is a great, especially when you're dealing with, I feel like Mega 10, especially as they've sort of had to escalate things, right? Every time suddenly it's not enough to deal with an Archangel, you have to deal with YHVH or whatever. And so once you hit there, you're going to have to escalate something. And, I think it'd be interesting to see some of those, like, blackness beyond the stars kind of entities that are so unfathomable that, maybe we don't even, like, physically see it. Instead of a giant face, the boss fight is literally against an empty star field, that just sort of floats there.
And it is one of those really funny things of, like, it's gotta be... It's funny because, like, no one really calls out the series as being lazy because, like, they have original designs, but they are almost never original, like, in their creations or their origins, which I find so funny of, like, no one is, like, looking at all their demons and being like, because, like, hypothetically, they have an almost limitless number of mythologies to kind of pull things from in different aspects of their stuff. I find so funny because, like, kind of going back to, like, being excited for new takes on things, I remember explicitly being really, really excited for Dagda coming from Irish mythology in Apocalypse, because that was just such an out of left field thing for a central character.
Right. Yeah, to make him the big deal, because we've had Cthulhu and Satanta, and we've had those, Skatak, right? We've had a few other Irish reps, but yeah, seeing Dagda have such a central role.
I will say this. I really hope it's not like I hope we see more than like 5 seconds of Fionmac, because Fionmac looks so good. And the fact that they're in one cutscene gives me hope, but then I'm also worried that that's their only cutscene they're in.
Right, if I remember right, when he was one of the early demon showcases, and he wasn't super high level, so...
No, I know, but the fact that they at least gave him a voice actor at least makes me think there's a chance. There's a chance, at least.
That's fair. That was actually... I think the other thing that I've always liked about Atlas is they seem conscious of that role of mythology and popular storytelling and popular art, even, to mythology. Because I want to be one of those other people that comes on the pod and plugs it. That was one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised with as I got later into Tokyo Mirage Sessions, right? Is they deal with this idea that, like, art as this transcendent culture-spanning experience, and that, like, art and entertainment is a very universal cultural thing, and it treats these mirages like these sort of muses, right? The, like, mythological muses. And I like seeing that as a reminder that, like, oh yeah, Atlas is aware of kind of this broader context of dealing with mythology and dealing with these cultural aspects. And I think that's super encouraging to me.
Now, kind of talking about that, I was curious, so we were talking about this a little bit before we got started, of kind of being conscientious about interpretations and designs, and something that came up recently in the news was Doi, who is the main artist for 5, was kind of talking about aspects of, hey, I'm doing things with these characters that I want to try because I think it's good to get us out of our comfort zone. Had any of the designs kind of taken you for a surprise? Like, for me, I was actually most surprised by Idun of... I thought the design was a really interesting, bold choice for her, and I just could not get over the amount of people online who just thought, oh, she looks like lowly Red Riding Hood. And I'm like, that's all it takes? You guys see, like, a girl with blonde hair, blue eyes, and red skirt, and it has to be Red Riding
Right.
Hood. It was very weird because like for me, I noticed the eyes, I noticed the hair, and I noticed the apples of like knowing what her character's from for it. I thought was just so interesting. Of like, oh my god, like how much kind of interesting cues you can throw into color scheming and accessories, and kind of telling a story that way, just at a look at the character, and not just kind of reduct it down to, oh, it's Red Riding Hood, which also hilariously we have seen before.
I do love it in it's one of the, I don't know if I assume you've been following Atlas West's sort of translations of, or maybe you read the originals of the Doi Demon commentary. And I loved his commentary for Lamu, the tentacle face thing that has shown up in a lot of the trailers. I love, he talks about all the different aspects, right? Of like, okay, well, we have the tentacles because sometimes Lamu is depicted as this like snake thing, and so we're using those to like be mindful of that snake heritage, but also it's associated with these muddy plains in the floodplains of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and so he's a mask made of mud. That these aspects kind of find these creative expressions in the way and this is something that Kaneko did as well, that I think both Doi and Kaneko are very good at finding these little ways to put the details in their mythological depictions. And I'm one of those people who I love whether or not you succeed overall in your design. I always respect effort, and I always respect sort of the research. And so if you prove to me that you've done your research. So another good example out of Megaten was Hades recently. And there are some elements of that script that tell me, as somebody who is intimately familiar with that mythology especially, there's an offhand kind of joke where Dionysus kind of tells the Graeus, like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we convinced all the bards that we were the same person? In the Greek Dark Ages, they were the same person. The Graeus is Chthonic Dionysus. And it's one of those things where that is not something that you recognize as like a shallow perusal of the mythology. That's a joke for the people who know. And I love that both Kaneko and Doi have a really good habit of taking those little bits and pulling in all that research and all that flavor, the cultural and also contextual, into their design.
No, yeah, exactly. And I mean, even in other aspects of, I like that we have, especially like when it's a doubleheader like this, of it's a new design for something we may not have seen very much, if ever, before, and they're pivotal to the story. Because I think it's always so boring of when the villain is just a guy, as opposed to, like, I like when it's tied to a certain, like, aspect or corner. Like, the fact that we've seen so much of Nua, like, I don't think SEO for Nua has ever been higher in the year 2021. Like, who was aware outside of Chinese mythological majors about who Nua was for the goddess of life and, like, creating man with clay? And it was just so funny of, like, that was one I was very intimately aware of because of different short stories I had read growing up and stuff. In mythology, and I thought that was so funny of having that character pulled up and be like, wow, what a weird get of just like having her.
Well, and it's funny because you got me curious. I was like, has Nua even been in another Megaten game? She was in Ronda.
Yep. Well, hey, you know what? I won't make anyone feel bad for not playing Ronda.
I've not played Ronda, and I have been scared to. That's funny. That's why I was like, I think she's new to the series too, isn't she? Oh no, not completely.
Well, hey, I'm not gonna call anyone out here for having not played Last Bible 3. Just saying to everybody, don't worry. It's a safe space here for those Japanese only titles.
Right. It was funny because I have I actually have only played SMT2, I think, to completion of the Japanese only titles. Most everything else, I'm a filthy casual who does things in English.
I think the fact that you are even what are we, like 30 minutes into a mythological discussion of just jerking off all these different adaptations. I think the farthest thing from a filthy casual. I'm more interested. I need to know, how in the heck have you stopped playing PlayStation games after the PS2? What are you playing these things on?
So I didn't play a lot of games much at all through the 2000s, and you know, I still haven't never played Persona 5, for instance.
That's okay. I beat it last year, so you have no excuse.
That's fine. I figure it'll eventually get a PC port. You know, P4 did numbers, and I'm assuming they'll it's even Atlas can learn the lesson that a PC port will make them money.
So are you primarily PC for everything then?
I'm PC, and then I have a Switch now. It's funny because as a Mega 10 fan, I sort of was very, you know, I guess PS2 is considered like the golden age, right? Because you got the Raidu games, you've got Digital Devil Saga, you got Nocturne, you got Personas 3 and 4, and then I just sort of was all PC all the time, so I just kind of lapsed out of Mega 10 because I never had a DS or a 3DS. And then I married my wife, and of course that's the wealth that she brought to the household, is she owned a 3DS. And so I
what do you lose in the divorce? The entire 3DS library and catalog.
Exactly. And so she sort of brought that, and I went, oh, I can play the backlog of Mega 10 that I just have missed for a decade, or at least, you know, a decent chunk of it. And so I still haven't picked up the Soul Hackers remake, and I still haven't done Devil Survivor, but either of them. But other than that, I finally got my hands on all the 3DS stuff.
That is a pricey acquisition, I'm very sure.
Now, I actually lucked out. Our local, the eShop is a beautiful thing. I'm one of those people who, if it comes to, you know, it's $100 for physical, I will just get digital if I have to.
I don't have that willpower, but I envy you.
I did luck out though, because I picked up 4 sort of shortly before its price started spiking. I got it used at a GameStop for $20.
There was a literally almost 8 years of all of those games were like $20 or under. I will say though, kind of wrapping up or talking about it, if I ever got a chance to pick someone's brain, because the localization branch can't really answer this as well as like someone who actually worked on the text itself in Japan, I would really love to know who are like the flavor text writers for the demons, because that has got to be such a unenviable job of having to try and fit personality within 4 to 5 sentences for hundreds of creatures, because like there are so many, like there's nothing more depressing than when you're excited to see a demon or hear them talk in a conversation and their entire thought process goes down to
right,
and it's like, oh my god, really? Like that's all we get is just some grunts and he's gonna like rob me.
In a row that says nice to meet ya.
Yeah, it's like, I get it, it's gotta be tough, especially with that language barrier, because God only knows that entire team is not gonna be, like, well-versed on everything they're doing. Like, some of them, I'm very sure, are just looking at the designs and being like, this is cool! Like, alright, let's go. But yeah, it's like, I would love to know, like, why some kind of get more preferential treatment in terms of character development than others, outside of just, like, what that process is in terms of what do we like, what can we do, or like I am so certain with the amount of demons that have been included in this series, there's got to be at least a couple, like dozen, that have just been included because they look cool and no one knows anything else besides their name.
Right. And you know, it's better than if they go the Pokemon route and then we just have Odin.
Yeah, that's its own special thing. I'm just looking. Can we just Digimon up SMT a little more, please? Can I become friends? Can I evolve Nua into a Nua with a fridge and a gun? That's what I need.
Bring back Terminator.
Oh,
he seems like a cool guy to go out on the town with.
Like, going back to IP, I know it like would never happen, but like, man, I legitimately think there was a cool reason why they wanted to include Donald and Mickey. Like, I think that there would have been a really funny dark fantasy twist take to include Mickey Mouse murdering and Donald Duck or whatever. I mean, even going back, like we have like Friday the 13th and stuff, and other references and things of like, man, just horror alone is its own interesting mythology.
Imagine the alternate universe where they did the Donald and Mickey thing, and the Kingdom Hearts games are actually a Mega 10 sub-series, and today's announcement of Sora would have actually been an announcement of Nahabino, but he would have also been the Sora in,
oh my gosh.
you know.
That would be too much for me. I would actually like have an aneurysm, I think, at that point.
A little too much going on there.
Well, man, thank you for the absolute blast of a topic. I got to end my day on the absolute highest of high notes. I love nothing more than talking about what ifs, designs, and especially mythological stuff with it. So thank you so much for the idea. SMTN. All right, everybody. We are here for the final, maybe, I don't know where I'm actually going to put any of these in order, but this is my final Patron Town Hall conversation. I'm still your host, Spencer Presley from SMT Network, and joining me for this awesome patron, I was trying to make a pun off of Patron and Pat, but I definitely was going to then use Persona Pat as it, and that was like too many P's back to back. But either way, super awesome pal patron Patrick here. Patrick, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. I'm impressed you didn't fumble on the on that many P words in a row.
You would think me doing this long enough, I would like not be absolutely terrible about talking into a microphone. But I still find ways to surprise myself.
And I see that you must have some kind of pop filter or something, because I didn't hear a whole bunch of that.
We've upgraded. We've slowly upgraded from the PlayStation Eye camera. We now have a pop filter. I can't confirm.
Oh, you're not using your PlayStation Eye camera anymore.
Not anymore. That was my birthday gift last year, actually. One of my parents got me that as like hey, what would you want? And I was like, I don't want to recommend anything crazy, but I was like, I just moved, and I was like, I should get an actual microphone. So it was we got like some like pretty decent, I at least assume the quality is decent because no one has complained yet, like $60 mic. And outside of having the most fun, annoying problem of sometimes when you use it, in a recording, only in recording, it will be hilariously quiet. Other times, totally fine. Just every like 9 out of 10 times while recording. Never while just talking. While recording, Audacity wants it to think I'm talking into like a dog-sized microphone.
Okay.
But yeah, so you and me, we have not really caught up. We've not had our sadly was supposed to be yearly bro date in quite a while, so I have not actually seen your handsome mug since January of last year. So for all 9,000 people out there who did not go to TaiyoCon 2020, who are you? What have you been up to? And what the heck are you doing here?
Well, my name is Pat, as some of you probably figured out from that little intro there with all the P words. I've been a patron for this show for quite a while now. Geez, what, 7-8 years?
There's, I think, only one person who has done it longer than you, and I think they actually might have just had to stop. I'm gonna look at it while you're saying it, but yeah, you are.
Is it Robert?
It is Robert, but I'm actually double checking to make sure if he might still be here, or if we finally got successful enough that Patreon had to flip us over. Yeah, so Robert, I think, just stopped recently. So you are now the longest continuous running patron supporter in SMTN history.
Woo.
which warrants you to, whenever I finally see you, I owe you as much food from where you live as much as possible.
I mean, you don't have to.
Well, it's an excuse for me to eat, so then I see if like it's like expensing something for work, but the work is me, and I get to enjoy these conversations, but not on the record, which is the best part.
I mean, I was gonna say, I pay for the podcast basically, so
you're keeping the lights on right now.
Yeah, I'm sure my $5 every month always helps.
It adds. Hey, every penny helps, especially. But no, yeah, it is funny though to think that you are not only the longest one, but I think seriously you are probably the first patron I met in person at least, because a lot of them are definitely kind of spread out all over the place.
Well, yeah, you were mentioning like somebody in Germany earlier before we were recording. You're talking to people in Germany, so yeah, I'd imagine you wouldn't have met one of them yet, unless they come over here.
The farthest away I think SMTN friend I've ever met. Oh, that's tough. I was going to say Marcus actually, but no, I've actually met a SMTN fan who was in town for like a weekend, but they are normally from Korea, weirdly enough. That was not a patron though, but that was one of those fun ones of like, oh, this is a Facebook name I'd seen a bajillion times, and then they were like, hey, I'm in town, and I'm like, okay, this is the before times. We go out and we meet people. But yeah, so for you, for everyone else that might there who might not know you and what you're doing, actually, I have a weird question for you. You are you are the definition of like that meme of like those like when people are like those three people who always like every tweet you do. Are you sure like you actually run your Twitter account? Like it's not a bot. You actually like find a way to like all of mine and Jeremy Parrish's tweets somehow?
The funny thing is, I'm pretty sure there are tweets of yours I don't see.
Oh, see, I thought you were gonna say there are tweets of yours I definitely don't like. I need to find a tweet that I've made that like you've purposefully been like, that's a bad tweet. I cannot like that in perpetuity.
Well, if I see a meme and I don't think it's funny, I won't like it.
Okay, so there are standards. I appreciate that. We can't just let everything in.
Well, because here's the thing: if I like it, people see it, and if it's not, good for your brand, I'm not gonna like that.
The brand. We're very brand conscientious over here. Now, this is a weird one. I don't know if you know who this person is, but are you aware of who Zach is from Sega and Atlas PR?
I don't think so.
So his name is Zach Reese. He does a bunch of PR stuff for, I was going to say mostly Sega, but they're all the same thing. He is literally like, from everything I've ever gauged from like his Twitter, it seems very much like you guys could switch Twitter accounts, and I would 100% believe it, with like the mixture of old game nostalgia and just VTubers. It's just that. That's like 50-50 split right there.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
I've somehow not gone down the VTuber rabbit hole, and at this point I'm just too scared to even like try. Like the only VTubers I ever follow, ironically, are two people that you know. Are Kat, who just started one, and Devin, who I think started one like maybe like a half a year ago now.
So, I mean, you watched some of Tokyo Game Show, right?
I'm very aware of VTubers. I've seen way too many. When I mean I don't know anything about them, I mean I don't subscribe to any. I've literally never watched a VTuber do anything outside of like official press materials for things. So I forget.
I was gonna say by now you must have seen a lot of Corone with all the live streams you've watched.
That's the dog girl, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of the dog girl. I actually remember her from forever ago, but that's just because of the what was it, when Ikam Bokum was all over the place, which I feel like was a long time ago, but then watch it was only like a year ago.
Yeah, it was only a year ago. It wasn't that long ago.
What are like the early days of VTuber? Like what would like the first VTuber be? I have to wonder.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of argument about that, but like the first like person who called themselves a VTuber was Kizuna Ai.
Oh, okay.
And
I do know that one.
Yeah, I mean that's because like she is an AI, so she'd like introduce herself as, a virtual YouTuber because she's not real. She lives in a
Why
virtual
can't it be
space.
Hatsune Miku, your favorite VTuber?
But but I mean,
Hatsune Miku has been on YouTube and is virtual.
As much as I like Miku, like she's not really a personality.
You're just gonna leave it. She's not a person. I'm sorry to break it to everybody.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
Now here's the real question. I don't know who your favorite VTuber is. I'm assuming you have one, and can I guess them?
Well, I definitely do. I will say I've mentioned them in a text before.
I'm going to purposefully get this wrong, but just because I need to segue into this and get your thoughts on this, because we've not talked about this.
Okay.
Tell me right now, tell me without lying, tell me that Sonic the Hedgehog is not your favorite VTuber.
I actually haven't seen Sonic as a VTuber outside of like little clips.
It's unsettling because they put actually less budget into it than like when they would do the 3D Teddy or Morgana models. You know what's funny? Those were probably VTubers without us even realizing it. They were just someone like yelling into a 3D model rig, a very bad 3D model rig.
I mean, like what is a VTuber is pretty loose anyway, because a lot of people say like if you have a PNG that like moves around while you talk, you're a VTuber. Because, I mean, if you get like that, then, like, I don't know, you've had a lot of VTubers on then. Because, like,
scary.
even, like, somebody like LaRue could count as a VTuber because he's done that.
Oh, man, I can't. No, we can't have that. That's not allowable.
I hope he hears that. I want to hear him react to that.
The chance of LaRue listening to one of our podcasts is very low. I think I joked to him, like, the number of shows he's listened to is probably only double digits because of the amount of times he's been on them. But I also don't blame them.
Does he listen to his own episodes?
No, but he's active. Well, you would hope he's actively listening when he's the guest. When he's on them, you would hope he's listening.
Oh, well, yeah, no.
But no, I don't blame him at all, because the idea of like listening to another person's podcast about like SMT and Persona, I'm like, nah, dude, I'm good. I'd rather start VTubing than doing that.
Right.
So it's sadly not Sonic the Hedgehog. So who is your favorite and why?
So it'd be Calliope Mori.
Okay, you're gonna have to dumb it down for me. I know what they all look like. I just don't know any of their names.
So this is the Grim Reaper one with pink hair.
Oh my god, what? I don't know this one actually. I'm gonna look this up. I was like, I'm sure it's like one of the... Oh, I do know this one. I actually don't ever see that much of her. I always see the Shark Lady a lot.
Oh, yeah. She's the most popular one.
Really? I always thought the pink-haired girl was the most popular, but that's why all my friends had no taste and liked the other ones the most. That's so funny. So basically my two other friends I know who are the most into VTubing are Torin and Dylan, which then makes it even funnier that Dylan is then life partners with a VTuber. And I find it very unsettling. I don't know if it's for, like, security reasons or if, like, in their headcanon they do this, but Devin's VTuber will refer to Dylan by his online handle. And they're, like, in the same room with each other. It's like, this is too many steps removed from each other. I can't do this.
I mean, I've heard podcasters do that, too, so I don't think that's that unusual.
True, and I'm also someone who does not have an online pseudonym. So, like, I super don't get it. So I'm very much, like, not in a good camp for that.
Yeah, I've never really understood the whole, like, online handle thing anyway.
Well, you've patented, basically, Persona Pat. No one else will ever be Persona Pat besides you.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be Patless, but Patless is taken. And is also the name of, like... some Middle Eastern children's television show. So
did you know that SMT5 is like a Chilean variety show? I found out.
What?
I'm gonna type this in right now because every time I do SMT5, Here we go. SMT5. I know my Google Analytics is going to say a weird thing for it. Here we go. It is a British TV program. It is SM:TV. So SMTV, an abbreviation of Saturday Morning Television, is a British Saturday morning children's television show from 1998 to 2001, and literally still has higher SEO than SMT5 as the video game.
Huh.
It's a weird world we live in.
That is weird.
But yeah, so I mean, I get it, especially. I think it's always just one of those other ones of like, how much of yourself do you want to put out there? Now, you're aware of the fact that you have a very common name. So just saying your name is Pat, no one can dox you like that. And what's funny is that I think even Spencer's not that uncommon of a name, or even, like, I think I'm like right in the middle. There's not a lot of Spencers, but it's not a name you're going to have to like ask twice about. But it is one of those funny things of like, I know so many people who are like will get worried about using their real name, and it's like, dude, your name is literally the equivalent of John Doe. Like, no one's gonna track you down with the most like vanilla white guy name of all time. Like, they would need basically your social security to get any better than this.
Yeah, I don't know why people be nervous about that. Putting your whole name, but even then, putting your whole name, there's at least one other person who has that.
My name?
No, I mean like just anybody putting their whole name.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure there must be another, Spencer Presley out there.
But I remember I used one of those weird sites of like, look at people who were out there, and there was literally no one else. But that's because I have a weird way to spell my last name. Everyone always thinks Presley like Elvis. It's never that.
Yeah, that's right.
But again, I'm a sad man in the Midwest, and if you spend any of your time to look at me, you probably have like bigger problems in your life, which thankfully has always been the case. Now, I don't even know how we actually got on the topic of I don't even know how we got on the topic of VTubers for it, but yeah, so
I hate to say it, you talk to me these days for more than a few minutes, it'll probably come up.
Dang.
I try not to, but
I thought you were gonna throw it back at me of saying I don't talk to you enough, and I wanted to bring up one of the things to you of like, Patrick, I want you to know, if it was not for the fact that you have a very polar opposite work schedule to me, and that we live sadly not buddy like roommates, like if I was your Kramer to your Jerry, you would never be able to get rid of me. You would just have to be like you would be forced into being my co-host on every episode if you lived close enough and had a better schedule. You need to know that.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know if I'm podcast worthy, but
I wasn't sure if you were going to say podcast worthy or Jerry worthy. Do you relate more to Jerry or Kramer?
I guess I'm kind of a Jerry, because I definitely do say what's the deal with stuff all the time.
I don't want to be a pirate. I gotta watch my VTubers. I would pay so much money to have someone teach Jerry Seinfeld about VTubers.
I don't know what the hell he'd think of that.
I mean, he's at that level where he literally just doesn't have to care about anything. Although I will say I do appreciate Jerry Seinfeld for just having no real care. Like, have you seen the ads Netflix has made for Seinfeld being on Netflix now?
No.
They literally are like, they have like a fuck it ad of it looks like an ad for the Lego Seinfeld set, but it's not. It's making a joke of saying, based off of the hit Lego set Seinfeld, we have made a show and produced 9 seasons of it. Here you go. Enjoy all like 800 episodes or whatever. And the best part about it is like, they're like, what's the whole point of this ad? Like, it's Jerry Seinfeld in a overly large Jerry Seinfeld Lego costume just doing nonsensical things, and he's like, "What's the ad for? I don't get it." They're like, "It doesn't matter. We have the rights to your show. We can make you do whatever we want now." And it's voiced by Patrick Warburton. No, it's voiced by Bryan Cranston. And then there is a split cutaway gag with Patrick Warburton as David Putty. And then there's even a joke to Bryan Cranston's character being in like 5 episodes, and I'm like, this is the weirdest ad I've ever seen for a show just being on Netflix. Like, you didn't see them making ads for Friends being on like Peacock or whatever, but I just thought it was like so funny. Of like, that's how you know like a show is so like big, but literally you don't need to advertise it, when it's like, just make the ad fucking nonsensical garbage. It doesn't matter. People are gonna watch it.
I'll have to look that up after this.
It's very good. I highly, highly recommend it. Like, if you've ever seen that Nightmare Fuel, like, do you remember when they did the very first, this is a really weird deep cut, they did a teaser trailer to the Bee movie, and it made it look like it was going to be Jerry Seinfeld in a bee costume for the Bee movie.
Okay, I think I have seen this one.
It's like that kind of vibe. It's very weird.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about Jerry Seinfeld, unfortunately, even though I am excited for 900 episodes of Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm this month. We're here hypothetically to talk about video games, but I wanted to actually kind of talk to you about, specifically right now, what the heck are you playing? Because I feel like every time I talk to you about what you're playing, it's all over the place. Like, it could be something kind of new, like a Yakuza 7, or you could just be like, I'm playing Herzog's Wii on the Genesis, and I'd be like, okay, I believe you.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Especially now, like, I've like fully converted over to PC gaming.
I hate to see it. You hate to see it.
But it's you know what it is for me?
Convenience?
It's the controllers.
Oh, okay.
No, I can use whatever I want on whatever game, and that is wonderful. As somebody who has probably bought, probably like at least 30 different controllers over my lifetime, it's, because like I have like an entire cabinet full of controllers just for different systems, And it's so nice to just all of a sudden go, wow, I can use any of these. Any single one I want. And the funny thing is the best controller I found is for a console I don't even own.
Oh, please tell me it's the DualSense.
No.
Damn
That
it.
would be fun.
Do you have the DualSense?
No, I don't.
It's literally my favorite controller. I love the DualSense.
No, I love the Xbox One controller.
I get that. That's a solid... Well, now, hold on. Are we talking specifically 2013 Xbox One? Are you talking about the Elite controller? Or, like, the newest revision of it with the extra share button? Like, which one are we talking here?
I believe it's just the original. But it's the one that actually doesn't have a shield D-pad, like has an actual D-pad.
Okay, yeah, that's the original one that came out at launch. So, I like the Xbox controller, but this is my thing, is I could never get over... Now, obviously, I make it work. I don't prefer the offset sticks. I don't really get it. Were you, like, someone who... Did you have to acclimate to that? Like, or do you just, like, prefer one over the other?
It doesn't really bother me much. Actually, my favorite, like, stick setup was always the Wii U.
So you're really excited for the Steam Deck then? They're bringing back
really well.
They're bringing back the top stick placement.
Yeah, I think that was good. Like, I remember playing what's the full title of that? The Sonic Transformed Racing whatever.
Oh, excuse me, sir. I have 2 copies right next to me right here. It is Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed. That was great, because do you remember what made the Wii U version so good?
Oh, who was in it?
Well, not specifically, because everyone had pretty much the same characters for it. The Wii U version was special because it was the only thing you could do 5-player local multiplayer, because 1 person could be on the gamepad and 4 people on the TV.
Wait, it was 5?
Yeah, you could do 5. 1 on gamepad, 4 on the TV.
I don't think I knew that.
most people probably didn't have 5 people asking to play Sonic in Sega All-Stars, but that is like legitimately, unfortunately for Sumo Digital, the people who made that game and every other Sonic racing game, like that was so good, they literally have still never beat it. Like Team Sonic Racing released last year, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you. I like Team Sonic Racing better.
Better? Are you aware one
Yeah.
Are you aware one literally has the entire legacy of people you would want from Sega, and the other just has a bunch of colored ghosts from Sonic Colors?
Well, yes, that is true. But I think in terms of like gameplay, Team Sonic Racing is just a really good improvement and pretty unique.
I've
Like,
literally never heard anyone say that. This is such an interesting take. So I think I messed around with like either a demo or a beta or something. I could not have cared less for it, which it really sucks because I love kart racers and I really like sumo. Like, because they actually made a racing game after Racing Transformed, but before Team Sonic Racing.
What was that?
They made the racing game add-on expansion to Disney Infinity 3.0. So they literally made a Team Sonic Racing style, like it controls just like Team Sonic Racing, but with Disney Infinity characters.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, like that team mechanic is really good. Like, there's nothing else that plays like that. And if you're actually like playing with friends, 'cause I mean, like if you're playing the single player, I get it. It's just like this weird, I gotta rely on these stupid CPU allies to do stuff with me. But I mean, like if you're actually playing with friends, it's really good.
That has to be a completely dead community, right? No one's actively playing Team Sonic Racing online.
I mean, that's true. I haven't played it in a while, but considering I have a friend who has Shadow the Hedgehog on every console it's ever come out on, and has beaten it on every console it's come out on, I have a few people to play with.
That's true. You're aware of the fandom. Now, I guess kind of actually going off of that, because we're talking about Sonic here, I reviewed my first Sonic game, and unfortunately it was Sonic Colors Ultimate, which I'm not one of the naysayers who thinks it's like a disaster. Have you got a chance to mess around with that very much?
No.
Did all the reviews scare you away?
No, I played Sonic Colors pretty recently. Not like for the first time, but replayed it fairly recently. And I don't know. It wasn't as good as I remembered.
So that's the funny thing is, I always, by the way, assume no one watches my videos, because I assume once you're friends with me, watching my stuff has got to be weird.
I watched your review. But...
Okay, so thank you. I appreciate that. So then you'll already know the camp I'm in of like, so that was my first time playing it. I could not believe how much it did not live up to the hype. I had for years had heard that Sonic Colors was so good, and I was like, well, I love Sonic Generations, so clearly this must be true. And it was just so funny of like, it's okay.
Yeah, I think the problem with Sonic games, well, one of the many problems, unfortunately, is after 06, any game that's not broken is just, oh my god, if you think Sonic games are bad, you need to play this one. This one's good. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Like,
unfortunately, yeah, like... And I've never been one of the sides who, like, I don't go into a Sonic game. I'm not like Aaron Hansen. I'm not going into every Sonic game expecting a dumpster fire, but I am at least a little picky with what I play. Like when I think or I'm not sure I'm gonna like one, I dip out. Like, there's a reason I played Sonic Colors on DS over the console one, and what's funnily enough, I actually went back to the DS one. I still prefer the DS one to the remastered Ultimate, but it was just so funny of like looking at Sonic's, what are we at, 30th anniversary right now?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, what a sad wet fart of an anniversary he's had. Like that is like, and also weirdly enough, this is like the second time Sonic Colors has been brought up on this podcast. Like just this specific episode, like we had another patron like bring it up, funnily enough. But yeah, it was like one of those funny things of like, man, I feel bad. Like if people ever talk about how like The Persona anniversary has been off to a weird start. Like, guys, just be glad that Sega apparently has stopped caring about Sonic for his birthday. Either that or they just are really bad about pre-planning things. Because, like, I legitimately think by the time his 30th anniversary is up, the best thing that will have happened at the beginning and the end of that celebration will be the first and second Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Probably. I will say this though, if we actually had like a stream like the Sonic Anniversary stream, that probably would have been at least a little bit better start for the Persona Anniversary.
True, but then also, like, let's look at, like, in the moment that was a good stream. Everything that's kind of come because of it outside of a concert, which again, guys, like, a concert's like that's a gimme. Like, concerts are great.
Yeah.
But like, no one's gonna walk away from a concert unless it's that Sonic, like, 25th anniversary panel where they, like, blew out the mics and Crush 40 was, like, ear-defiling everybody. But, like, so the thing about it, though, is, like, because remember, they even announced, like, what, the Sonic Origins collection or whatever? And we haven't even heard anything about that. Like, dude, that's 4 Genesis games. Like, that's not, like, that's not even gonna be a cool collection.
Well, and it's like, how many times have we gotten those games?
And again, how much do you want to bet it's going to not even be actually all of them or the way we want them? Like, I think there's a really cool way to make a Sonic collection, but I don't think like they're going to do it.
And what's the Sonic 3 music situation going to be like?
Yeah, so that's the two big things of what's the Sonic 3 situation, and on top of it, are they going to actually have Sonic and Knuckles for all of the games, which they've never done in one collection before?
And I mean, why only have 4 games? Like, there are other Sonic games, some of which haven't even been ported to anything.
I'm going to be honest and say this, that Sonic, as a collection, peaked like when they did their re-releases. Sonic has peaked with the Mega and Gems collection. Even though I know those aren't perfect, but I love those 2 collections. Those are great. I would say the Sonic Genesis collection, just because it's a really great collection, but that's not a great Sonic collection. So that's why I'm putting that to the side.
No.
I literally, by the way, I want you to know the only reason I bought that was because it had Phantasy Star 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I was like, oh, I really want to play Phantasy Star. That was the entire reason I bought that Genesis collection on PS3. But no, so I think like if they just kind of like went back to basics of like just have a weird collection of games. Like they don't even have to do a lot. Like I think the fact that Sega, and you can tell they don't even still know what to do with the character. Like look at how they advertised Sonic the Fighters being in Lost Judgment.
Right?
Like I love Sonic the Fighters. That's not cool. Like that's not a cool thing to include. Like we've seen it before. Like they literally just took the files from the PS3 360 port and put it in as a Unity like builder. Like that's all it was.
Yeah,
like
I know it's got to be the same because what is her name? The extra character. Crap.
It's like the bunny or dog or something. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's the cat. Is it Honey?
Yes, Honey.
Yeah, the way you unlock her is exactly the same.
Yeah, so like it's one of those things of like I think there's a really interesting way you could do a Sonic collection, and I just don't know if it's because they don't want to pay M2 the money to do it right. But like I feel like if you wanted to even just do those first 4 games and do it interestingly, why not just do this of have Sonic 1. All the versions of Sonic 1. And I mean every version of Sonic 1. Have the phone version, have the 3DS version, have the Sega Ages version, have the Game Gear version, like include all the weird ports of it.
That's what I thought was good about the Switch version, because it had the arcade version. I didn't even know there was an arcade version before that Switch port.
But then, yeah, and even, like, do other things of, like, have unlockables that are out of left field. Like, I think 2 unlockable games that would be a really big notice, even though they're probably vastly different in quality, include the Japanese-only Sonic the Hedgehog arcade game, mostly just so we can say we have, was it Ray and, is that where Ray first came from?
Mighty are
okay.
From, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, you could have them from there, because that'd be really cool. And the other one is, like, they have to be aware that they've never, ever, ever re-released Sonic 4. Like, why not just make Sonic 4
We
in a
can-
collection?
We cannot re-release.
No.
that.
That's why you have it as an unlockable. Don't advertise it, but have it as an unlockable. Be like, oh my god, you remember this piece of shit? And then you play it for 5 minutes and you never touch it again.
Well, the one that gets me is, why has Chaotix never been ported? Ever.
Chaotix, I think, comes from a thing of it's not Sonic in the title, and there's literally like negative nostalgia for 32X, which actually sucks because I actually like Knuckles Chaotix. It's a really good soundtrack. It's really fun.
You're in good company here.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I love Chaotix. Like, I think it's a fun game. It's got a great soundtrack, and I like the characters and stuff in there. But it's a harder sell. It's like selling someone on Tails Adventure. Like, listen, I'm not saying Tails Adventure is bad, but no one's gonna call you out for not being a real Sonic fan if you haven't played Tails Adventure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a decent game for a Game Gear game, but you're not missing that much.
Sonic weirdly had like very few misses, I think, in the Game Gear ones because they knew what they were technically. Like,
yeah, they're all pretty decent.
Like, even like, I actually like Sonic. Was it Drift? Especially Drift 2. I really like Sonic Drift 2.
It's over Sonic Labyrinth. Don't ever touch that.
That's just like the puzzle one, right? It's just columns, but Sonic?
No. It's like this weird like isometric game where you're like stuck as a ball and you're like super slow.
It's Marble Madness is Sonic.
No. That might have been an interesting game. No, this game just like it's just super slow and awkward and
now this is making me wonder, was 3D Blast not on the Game Gear? I thought it was.
I think so. There's a game called Sonic Blast. But it's not like Sonic.
Oh, it is. Sonic Blast is Sonic 3D Blast on the Game Gear.
It is?
It literally is, yeah. It was made in 1996. God, dude, Game Gear does not get enough love. It's not a great system, but man, it's a weird system.
Yeah. Well, I think it only lasted as long as it did because the Master System was so big in I think Brazil.
Yeah, South America and Europe had Master System forever.
Yeah.
Actually, that was one of the funny things of, did you ever check out that Disney, oh my god, the Disney port of Aladdin and Lion King? So this is like what I would say is like what I love about a good collection that's weird. So they're going to re-release it, I think, in a couple of weeks, and it is now every version of Disney's Aladdin, Lion King, and Jungle Book. And what makes it, like, you would think, what a weird collection. Like, this is getting a retail release, it's on everything. Like, why would those 3 games need to be in a collection, you may ask? Because they include every version. They have the Virgin Aladdin game. They have the Capcom Aladdin game. They have the NES, the Super Nintendo, the Game Boy, the Game Gear. All of those versions are included for these titles, and along with having other unlockable stuff. And also, super shout out to the team who made it, Digital Eclipse. So they did like the Mega Man Legacy Collection and a whole bunch of other great like classic port stuff. But like that's what you want to see. Like, include all of these ports you would never really want to play or buy, but because they're just all included, it makes it more appetizing, you know?
Yeah. That is pretty interesting, because I always like watching those YouTube videos where somebody will go over like every single version of a game, because sometimes there's just bizarre differences, or levels are missing, music is different, or it's just an entirely different game. I think some of that stuff can be pretty interesting.
I mean, yeah, and like that's like what I always kind of go for in terms of ports and stuff. Of like, I love when a port is as weird as possible. Like, there's always that interesting thing of like, oh, look at what you did to make this run on another system. But I think it's almost more interesting of when you see those ports, and this happened a lot more in the 90s, of like, hey, how the hell are we going to make this game work on the NES when we probably should have stopped making games for that 5 years ago, you know?
Right.
So like that like always goes back to why I don't want to buy a port of Shin Megami Tensei 1. I think that's stupid. Like, why not include the 5 versions of it that exist out there? Don't sell me the iOS port again. Sell me the PC Engine. Sell me the NES Namcod edition. Sell me the GBA, the SNES. Like, include every weird version of, like, Megami Tensei or SMT1 in one, because, like, they are either different enough that they're interesting or are going to be boring by themselves and aren't going to attach much attention, you know?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, honestly, at this point, I'll take any version of SMT1 that's,
Legal.
that's not on a cell phone. Or hell, even just an Android version, I'd be okay with that. Just give me a version I can actually play.
There's got to be a reason they just won't give... There's got to be a reason they won't just pay M2 at Atlas, right? Because, like, Sega will work with M2. Like, they're the best in the biz for doing individual ports. Like, they made one of the best ports of Phantasy Star 2, I think. I think it was Phantasy Star 2. It might have actually been Phantasy Star 1. But...
It is Phantasy Star 1, yeah.
Okay.
That's a really good port.
Yeah, like, they did a great port of that, and they added a whole bunch of extra new features for, like, map making and stuff. And, like, just look at all their Sega Ages collections they've done. Like, Atlas doesn't have that large of a library. Like, I think you could do a test bed release, like, once and be pleasantly surprised at the results. Like, even, honestly, other weird little dumb things of, like, I know we have no reason to ask for this, but how cool would it be if, like, sometime in 2022, they're just like, oh, hey, the Sega CD version of SMT1 is in this collection. Like, you can just toggle on the Sega CD version.
You know, I've wanted to play it just because you talk up the soundtrack for that.
It's, well, like, now you know as much as me, because we're Sega fanboys over here. There's a certain, there's a certain tinniness you get with that Sega, especially the Sega CD soundtracks, and it just hits, like, all my nostalgic notes. Like, I just love how that sounds, and especially because the art's a little bit different of, like, how they handled it and stuff. Like, honestly, looking at the cover art for the Sega CD version of SMT1 is all you need to know. It's very grungy. It's very, like, you look and feel dirty just looking at the art, but in a good way.
But that's the way SMT should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should not be clean. It shouldn't be, like, kind of glossed up. Like, I look at the GBA port, which is the mobile one, and I go, like, this is the ugliest version of this game. I always feel like the GBA ones of, like, because, like, it's almost like in that one way, and I'm like this not even just with SMT, like, even with Final Fantasy. Like, I'm aware Final Fantasy VI is probably content complete the best on GBA, but, like, I always, like, still think of that PS1 and SNES version as the definitive versions of, like, Final Fantasy 4 and 6.
Yeah, I mean, like, if they didn't have the obnoxious load times, to me, I think they would be the best versions.
That's why, like, I don't get what Square Enix was. They got it right with the DS release of Chrono Trigger. It loaded as fast as the SNES version. It had this PlayStation cinematics, and it got rid of the load times. And then they just never did that with any of the other games. Because, like, I loved all of those extra cinematics they would add when they ported those games to the PlayStation, but those loads were horrendous.
Yeah, like, I really enjoyed my time with 5 and 6, you know, on the Final Fantasy, was it Anthology?
I always, because it's Anthology, Origins, or Mythologies, or whatever. Yeah, like, they all bleed together.
But, like, the fact that every time you press the freaking menu button, you had to wait for a load was just so obnoxious.
Now, these never came out here, but people don't actually know this, but the PlayStation ports of Megami Tensei, like, 1, 2, and If is okay. They also suffer from, like, they have horrendous, like, loading in some parts. Like, so, like, compared to the Super Nintendo ones of, like, they sound better and they look better, but, like, it was something about, like, just taking a Super Nintendo game, like, whatever that, like, development process was, like, developers just did not have the technical chops at the time to make it a smooth experience. So, like, it looked better, it usually sounded better, but, like, those loads, and especially with, like, an RPG where you're spending hours and hours and hours in that world, it just brings the entire experience to a halt.
Yeah. Well, and I know, like, there are times when I'll walk 5 steps and open up another treasure chest and then go in my menu and go, oh, what was that item? Or, oh, I got to equip that weapon or whatever. It just kills it.
I
That
will
makes,
I will say though, do you think, because I just always assume people just don't know this, do you think the fandom is just completely unaware that on the Japanese PlayStation Store you can literally download this right now, like if you have a Vita or a PSP or a PS3, SMT 1, 2, technically 3, but you know what I mean, if Devil Summoner, and then all the PSP games. Like, also I probably forgot. I think they have the. Oh my god, I always get this messed up. In my brain, I think there is a PS1 copy of Soul Hackers. Let's see if I'm wrong. I know it's on Saturn, and I always fuck this up. Okay, it is on PS1. In my brain, I'm always like, one of them is not on PS1, and it always fucks with me. But yeah, so like they have like every SMT game on the Japanese PlayStation Store, but obviously they're only in Japanese, and it's like one of those funny things.
yeah,
Of, like,
I was going to say.
like if that ever had a chance to even get like imported or even like just dummyified, because like you know how sometimes there's a while during the PS3 store era where Capcom and a couple other devs were like, hey, we'll give you our Japanese ROMs, they're not going to be in English, but we'll let you buy them in English officially. Like you could buy Mega Man 1 through 6, the Japanese only PlayStation versions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just miss that era of like having that there, and I think like especially because there's like I don't think the PS3 is that long ago, but it definitely was. So it's one of
It
the,
actually is, yeah.
so it's like, yeah, man, PS3. You guys remember when Arena came out? That was like yesterday. Oh my god, dude! Like next year, Persona 4 Arena is gonna be a decade old, and then like all the gray hairs just instantly grow into my body.
Yeah, it's weird for me to think, especially of like Persona 4 Arena for me, how old it is, because it's like that's when I got into the series.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this series that doesn't feel like I've really been into that long. I always feel like, oh, I'm one of the younger fans. I haven't been into it that long. And you're like, oh yeah, it's been like 10 years. You're actually probably one of the older fans now.
God, that is weird. Because I definitely, like, I felt like a bit of a baby when I started this show 10 years ago, you know? Like, I started this right out of high school. I started it, I think, maybe
Yeah.
either right as I turned 19 or shortly after.
Yeah, well, I wasn't actually talking about my actual age, but
No,
yeah,
but I mean,
you're
I
cool.
still think of myself as young by comparison of, like, because, like, I follow other people in the industry who are older than me, so I always kind of think of myself as young, and then I have to, like, remind myself, like no, dude, I'm 28. Like, when I'm, like, especially now because I keep doing the podcast, and, like, I think, especially now leading into something, like, in a post-Persona 5 world, leading up into SMT 5, talking to new people, whether it be on the Discord or on the podcast, I'm like, oh my god, like, my, like, the listener base and like basically I would say the average age for someone who was playing SMT4 at release, would you say it's safe to say that was probably around the 25 to 35 range? Like, legitimately now, like,
Yeah.
I know people who are under 17 who are, like, excited for SMT5, which is weird. But, like, there are, like,
It is weird.
there are people out there who have, like, told me, like, yeah, dude, I played Persona 4 or I played Persona 5 when I was, like, 13. And I'm like, that, hey, man, fucking go, good for you. I mean, I played Revelations at, I think, 4 or 5, like, around there. Like, I played it, like, close to launch, but I was, like, if it wasn't for the fact that that game was rated for everybody, I probably should not have been
Right.
playing it that young.
Yeah, I wish I could say that I got into it when I was younger. I almost picked up an SMT game a couple times. And, like, I still remember those times just because the box art was so unique and just interesting. Like, I always saw Persona 2 at the Blockbuster, and I was like, what is up with this game? Why does this lady have, like, a black upper lip? And
I was so
just
ready you were gonna
got-
go. I was so ready. I thought you were gonna go for the heart boobs.
No, and that was the second one. It was like the cowboy outfit with hearts on it. Like, it's an interesting choice.
I was talking about
And
this with Steven, who was on the show a little bit earlier. I was gonna say today, but whenever people are listening to this, and we were talking about, like, I think there's something I think that was lost in the PS2 generation of, like, I think it was a lot easier to catch our attention with interesting JRPGs on the PS1, whereas with the PS2, because it was so popular, it was just like almost like overload of, like, there are so many great games on PS2, but like no one could have played them all. So it was like one of those things that,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it was easy to be aware of all the good PS1 games, but like once PS2 got popular and like companies like Age Tech and Ubisoft were publishing JRPGs all the time, like you were forgiven for not following things. Like, that's how I missed everything after Suikoden 2. That's how I never played a Tales game until like 2017 or something. Like, there were so many series that, like, I was aware of, but I was like, I don't got time for this. Like, like, I'm sorry. Like, I love what's a good one that I got into hilariously late? Like, I love Valkyrie Profile, but I was so late on Valkyrie Profile.
Yeah, I wish that's one I really wish I could have played. Or am I thinking about? Yeah, that's the one that's like a 2D side scroller,
Mhm.
and then like you go into battle, and it's okay. Yeah, I've wanted to play that one so much. There is no good way to play that.
No, no good way or cheap way, sadly.
I'll be right back.
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm back.
He lives. So
Okay, so I never. Oh, you go ahead.
no, you go.
Okay, so I never actually talked about what games I was playing.
No, we're an hour into this, and I think we might make the intro the outro in classic me tradition.
Right. So I just finished Yakuza 7, which was a great game. I had a lot of fun with that. You were definitely right about that difficulty curve, though.
Yeah, like, I will say, I always, like, do you ever, like, read an interview, or when someone's talking to a developer and you wish you could, like, ask one question or throw a piece of comment out there? Like, someone was interviewing the Yakuza team, and when they were like, all right, dude, you got one question left, they're like, who would win, John Wick or Kazuma Kiryu? No, dude, here's my question. Yakuza 8, it's going to be an RPG, look me in the eye and tell me you're not going to have a bullshit difficulty spike. I'm aware you're doing it because it's an RPG and every Dragon Quest has a terrible bullshit difficulty spike, but that doesn't mean it's fun. Like, no one likes it. Like, no one has played Yakuza 7 and went flawless, had no road bumps. It was a smooth experience.
I will say this: if I had just gotten one skill, the game would have been a million times easier. And I only got it because I looked it up and was like, how the hell do I beat this stupid final boss?
Oh,
Well,
so
not
it
the
was
final
the
boss.
Okay, yeah, I'm assuming you mean the Roomba?
Oh no, that was no problem.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about the guy who kills you in one hit.
Oh, okay, yeah. Gotcha.
But yeah, if I had known that there was a skill that actually lets you survive a hit, it would have pretty much made every super hard boss way easier. Because my problem was always, the main character died. Not that he was weak, but it was just, he can't ever die.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to focus all your resources on keeping him alive.
I am legitimately so excited to see what they do to make new interesting mechanics, because, like, for for like a company's first hit at a JRPG, like, for the people who brought you the Monkey Ball to be bringing you that for their first RPG, like, hey, that's a really fucking good attempt. Like, that's a really good like, their first JRPG is better than some companies' like 10th RPG.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Like, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I was after like playing. Let's see, how many did I play? I played 0, 1, and then 6. Just going completely out of order. I was like, I think a turn-based RPG would be nice. Something a little different. Because, like, I was like, I like 6, but it kind of feels like I just played this.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's my only problem with the series is just like, okay, we're going back to the same place. We're doing the exact same thing. Like, the story's always good, but the gameplay always felt really similar to me.
That's why I was really hesitant, and that's why it took me so long to get Judge Eyes. Like, I knew it was popular, but at the end of the day, I'm like, it's still that same world from Yakuza 6. Like, how much kind of interesting like aspect could they keep to it? Like, because like Judgment does a bad job of selling it because it's like, hey, it looks like Yakuza, it's in the world of Yakuza, and it's made by Yakuza. But what actually saves it is, while Yakuza 7, I think, is saved by its new cast, its new setting, and the gameplay system, I think what saves Judgment is really its tone. Like, I love a lot of the Yakuza game series, but I think Judgment 1, again, it's the only one I've played, it nails the serious nature of that tone that it feels like you're playing a completely different game because it is serious. It's still goofy, but it is at its core, it is a procedural investigative thriller. And like Yakuza at its most serious is not about like I'm trying to figure out who is the murderer and what is the reason and what are the twists. It's much more of a kind of like it is a Yakuza story, whereas like there are Yakuza in the world of Judgment, but it does not matter in the way that it does in a Yakuza story, which is what I've really been interested in, of like how good of a job they do at telling that story in a way that would be really easy to seem stale and like you've seen a million times with how many like crime shows and dramas there are out there, that like they do a good job of like honestly, I bet you if it wasn't for the fact that it would probably be hard to make it happen, they could do a like Judgment like TV show in Japan very easily, and it would be very successful.
It probably would be. Yeah, I was gonna say like it feels like because of the difficulty spike that a huge portion of Yakuza 7 is a murder mystery, but that's only because that's where the difficulty spike is right there.
Mm-hmm. No, I get that.
But really, that's only like not even a third of the story by that point.
So now that you finished, though, what are you planning on playing next? Or are you in that kind of like calm before the storm?
So I got. Well, this is where you've said where like, oh yeah, I'll play Yakuza 7, and then I'll go back and play a game from 2017. I've started Blue Reflection.
Oh, so that's what brought it up. Okay, I was like, I was wondering if it was because of the sequel or the anime that it was. So okay, so you actually start. Are you playing? There is a PC port of that, right?
Yeah, I'm playing it on PC. Probably not the best version.
No, Koei Tecmo not known for their PC ports. They're getting better, but especially 5 years ago, Koei Tecmo definitely not known for their PC ports. But here's a weird question, because I've only played actually the Vita version. I know this is going to surprise you. Does it look like...
big surprise.
Yeah, I know. Does it look like a Vita game? Because that never came out in the West. It was only a PS4 and PC game over here. Like, how do you feel it holds up presentationally? Because I like it. Like, honestly, outside of it being a Vita game, and I'm a big Gust fan, speaking of PS2 games I wish I knew about in PS2 days, I was so late to the Gust RPG train. The way that got sold me on Blue Reflection was this. It is a JRPG Sailor Moon. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm in. I was like, that's all I need.
Well, yeah, for me, like, it always looked really interesting. It also reviewed, like, pretty poorly, it seems like, or at least the ones I read.
I'm assuming you're going up, like the Western ones, right?
Yeah, because, like, nobody seemed to gel with the game.
I feel like there's something about... There's something about, like, I feel like Gust RPGs never really get a fair shake. Like, either no one reviews them, or they're held under like a weird level of high scrutiny, which I don't get. Like, they're meant to kind of be like junk food games. Like, you're not playing Atelier Ryza. Like, trust me, that game is sold for its thighs, not its deep gameplay and lore. But like, it's a fun game. It's those are like my junk food RPGs.
Yeah. So that's a Atelia's Gust.
Mhm.
I didn't know that.
That is what they are mostly known for. That was actually what was so funny of when they announced the anime, the mobile game, and the sequel to Blue Reflection. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it was so out of left field of like, man, can never really, like, God love Koei Tecmo. They never seem to make sense of like what they want to do next or what series they will bring back. Like, I mean, we're getting fucking Monster Rancher HD collection. Like,
Yeah, that felt like it came out of nowhere.
I feel like it would have been more out of left field if Japan hadn't gotten it over the last like year or so, but I still am surprised we're getting it in the West nonetheless.
Yeah, and then we get friggin' Suezo and Monster Ball. Or not Monster Ball.
Monster
Monkey
Ball. It will be Monster Ball when it's done. I gotta say though, man, the fact that there are only 3 DLC characters couldn't be any less related. Hello Kitty, then Morgana, and then Suezo. Which, by the way, big ups to you for remembering any of the Monster Rancher names for any of the characters.
It's funny. I wanted to like those games a lot because I freaking loved the anime.
Oh yeah, it was a good anime.
Like, if I have to pick between like Pokemon, Digimon, and Monster Rancher based on anime alone, I friggin' love the Monster Rancher.
No, I'm saying don't make me pick.
So
That's a Sophie's Choice situation. That's a toughie, man. Like, that's really tough because they're so different. So like, honestly, one of the biggest things that sold me on it was my dad had an amazing, like literally in the hundreds of a CD collection. So I was stoked to find out that the CDs you own could be individual monsters.
Yeah, see, I didn't own many CDs at that point. God, now I'd have a million monsters I could make.
Here's my Persona Super Live monster.
Yeah, exactly. Or ones that. Well, the sad thing is I would want a Japanese version of the game. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure most of the interesting ones would be like some of the old city pop albums I have. Be like, oh yeah, here's a Japanese pop CD from the 70s. I'm sure that's going to be an interesting monster.
I always like to lie to myself with Monster Rancher of like being like, the CD I knew was randomized, but in my brain as a kid at the time was like, no, this monster is off of these songs specifically.
Well, some of them actually are.
Well, I would have had no idea for him. Like, do you remember any of the specifics that would have actually like been tied to specific CDs?
I remember looking in magazines and them saying like specifically these CDs give you these monsters, and they seemed related. Maybe they weren't. Maybe it was just like a guide, like, hey, here's the popular CDs, and here's what monsters they give you.
So my first CD I put in for Monster Rancher, I don't know what this says to what my collection of music I had on nearby me was. It was the soundtrack to Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, that says something.
Because if you remember, some of those old PS1 discs, like I think it was the black disc, were just CDs that you could stick in a CD player and listen to their soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I would do that with all my PlayStation games to see what would happen.
I think one of my other my go-tos was Gundam Battle Assault 2 soundtrack. I really, really fucking played the hell out of Battle Assault.
Oh, I loved that game. And that was like one of the few games I felt really looked a lot better with on the PS2. You did the upscaling or whatever.
Yeah, because the pixels were so big and chunky. Yeah, anything you could do to smooth out those edges for sure.
I played a crap ton of that game. But no, my first was the Men in Black soundtrack.
Not the Millennium? No.
No, I had that too, but
I don't know anyone who was around in the 90s who did not at least own a single Will Smith CD. That is a thing.
oh, you had to.
It was called the Millennium for a reason. Now, I will say, the final thing I want to say about Monster Rancher, I legitimately think it is a huge missed opportunity that it is only coming to PC and Switch. Like, there will be no way...
That's weird.
Yeah, there's no way to play it with CDs, like the original one.
Not on PC?
PC will have it, but it's just the Switch version. The Switch version had no way to actually use CDs at all. So maybe if someone hard mods a way into it, I don't know how you get monsters now, but there is like I think it's just like a randomized system in the game. Like, I know the port's out there. It's been out in Japan for a while. I just haven't really followed it. But yeah, when I heard it wasn't going to actually use CDs, I'm like, that was kind of the fun for me. Like, I'm sure it is still a solid like RPG for it, but like the fun of it was getting those CD monsters. But the last thing I wanted to kind of ask you is, I've been meaning to do this as a video, but we're getting already into October now, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna like have the determination to actually push it through. But I was curious what you think as a fellow big Sega fan here. Am I pretentious in saying I think 2021 might be like weirdly Sega West's biggest year they've had like in ever? Or at least not in ever, of like for a long time. Like, I haven't looked at Sega West releasing stuff, and this is obviously also including Atlas. I haven't looked at Sega in a, wow, you're actually releasing a lot of good games since like Alien Isolation. And that was many years ago.
I'm trying to think what came out this year, because I know we got Strikers and SMT3. And there's Sonic Colors.
I'm waiting for you to mention another good one. So far, you've only told me one good Koei Tecmo game.
And Monkey Ball.
Monkey Ball's great. Are you playing Monkey Ball, by the way?
Yakuza. Did Yakuza 7 come out this year, or was that last year?
Yakuza 7 technically came out on PS5 this year, but that one's kind of like a half point. I would say Lost Judgment. I would say Monkey Ball, obviously. I would say the Demon Slayer game I think people are sleeping on is going to be big, or at least sell like crazy, because Demon Slayer is really big. Obviously, SMT5. There's another one. There's like another Sega game I'm sitting on. Oh, they did Virtual Fighter 5. They brought back Virtual Fighter 5. It like was relevant for a week, but they brought it back.
I wish that port was...
better.
Had more to it.
It's you could tell that was designed to be a freebie, which really sucks. Because
Yeah.
like, I love Virtual Fighter, but as soon as I got that code in, I was like, this was literally designed to just be a game that is either for microtransactions or people to pay and do like there was no soul. Like, taking out the arcade and like the story aspects of it, like, it sadly felt soulless, which sucks because like it looked good. But at its core was still that same PS3 launch version of Virtual Fighter 5. So like,
what gets me is like it's missing things from the base version of Virtual Fighter 5.
Oh yeah, and especially with stuff like Final Showdown too. Like it felt like for every good move they did with VF5. Oh my god, for what is it? Ultimate Showdown, Final Showdown. For like every good move they did, like having a original Virtual Fighter 1 skin for everyone, I thought that was a cool step. But then also like having they had 10 other things that I hated about it, and also the netcode was still complete garbo.
Yeah, I didn't play very much of it. I wanted to. I love Virtua Fighter, but if the only real feature there is you can play it online, I gotta have more than that. I'm not gonna get a PlayStation Plus subscription just for that.
They were lucky that was PS Plus exclusive. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But no, another one that I know I'm not a fan of, but everyone I know who has played it has said they love the hell out of it, is Humankind has been really, really big. And I am excited, even though I don't play them anymore, but as a Warhammer and a Total War fan from back in the day, I like that Total Warhammer 3 is happening, so that's like one of those fun ones. I think they're just hitting on like a good consistent note. Whereas like we look at their last year, and like literally you say, Spencer, what's the best game that Sega released last year? And I'm not shitting you. I just am going to say Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, which I love Puyo Puyo Tetris, but Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 is literally the 1.5 of sequels.
I mean, I feel like there's enough different there.
There is, but it's like I don't want to mean like 1.5 even in a negative way. I think like a 1.5 in a how Smash Ultimate is really just a 1.5 version of Smash Brothers on Wii U. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the problem with like fighting game and puzzle game sequels is unless you like drastically overhaul the system, it's always going to feel like a 1.5.
Well, you know what's funny? My biggest thing I thought actually held them back the most with Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, my only complaint, what's funny is like when that game launched, I already knew all the DLC characters and everything for it, so like I knew they weren't going to change it. But I think if they got the foot out of their ass and made it crossplay, that would have really helped that game. Like, I remember when it came out, and I was texting you, and I was like, let's play, it's gotta be crossplay. Oh, and it wasn't.
Nope.
It was like,
nope.
Wow, thanks. Like, even, like, every other version of Tetris, like, even Tetris Effect, that has crossplay.
Wait, Tetris Effect has crossplay?
Yeah, because remember they had that multiplayer expansion last year on PC and Xbox. It's now out on PlayStation, and it's coming out this month on Switch. All of those versions multiplayer are crossplay.
Wow, I couldn't imagine playing the game on Switch. That is a VR game to me. Like, you gotta play that in VR.
I mean, cool. I was gonna be like, it's like the equivalent of like seeing a Pink Floyd concert on like a iPod Nano.
Yeah. So that's a good comparison.
It's like, yeah, I mean, like, you're there, but are you really though?
Yeah, and that game actually like made me a lot better at Tetris too. And it's not like it helps you get better at Tetris. There's not like a tutorial or something, but it's just, I don't know, the way the difficulty was set up, just it had a good progression where like I had to learn a new skill to get past every level, you know?
I will say this, Tetris Effect definitely has ruined Tetris single player. Like, if you were a single-player Tetris game, you have an uphill battle to contend to comparing yourself to Tetris Effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, though, like, I played Tetris Effect, and then I went back to Puyo Puyo Tetris 1 because I was much better at Tetris, so I could actually beat all those stages I couldn't beat.
Mm-hmm.
And then Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 got announced, like, I think a month after that or something.
What a weird thing to have a sequel to. Like, who was expecting that was going to get a sequel, really?
Not me. Like, I imported the game because I'm like, oh yeah, this game's never coming out in the West.
Well, yeah, because remember the first one, the only reason it ever came out in the West was because the Switch was happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they were probably just desperate to get something on Switch, so they're just, this will probably sell because it's Tetris.
Well, actually, the reason the Switch one was the chance for it to release was because Ubisoft still had the rights to Tetris on consoles. EA had the rights on mobile, Ubisoft had the rights on consoles, but that was specific consoles to PC, Xbox, PlayStation Digital, and I guess Wii U, and also 3DS and Vita. So that's why Tetris Ultimate was on everything else, and Puyo Puyo Tetris, if you remember when it came out at launch, was digital physical on Switch and only physical at launch on PS4. It didn't get a digital release, I think, until a year and a half after. Yeah, Puyo Puyo Tetris has such a weird history, especially because then people Loved the first one. Absolutely ignored Puyo Champions. I think Sega team sadly had a hard reality when they found out no one liked playing just Puyo Puyo without the Tetris, and then they were like, "Oh shit, I guess
I do.
There's a great game there. I'm just saying, what was the lifespan of Puyo Champions? You know, Puyo Puyo does not work as an esport.
No, I will tell you what. I thought I was decent at Puyo Puyo. And I was like, oh yeah, I can get like 5 or 6 combos or whatever, and then I go online and there's not a single person I've ever beaten on Puyo Puyo Champions. Like, everybody on there is just incredible. Which is weird because like I played Puyo Puyo Tetris online when it was, back when it was a Japanese only game. And I won lots of games.
Mm-hmm.
But, God, when you go into the Puyo Puyo arena, people play for keeps, man.
Now,
those guys are good.
Now, we talked about this again earlier in the episode, but I'm going to double down because you weren't there for this. I unfortunately found out that Sega cucked me out of 2 of my favorite P words for Judgment Remastered. So Judgment on PS4 has 2 minigames that got removed on the PS5, Xbox version, and the Stadia. So they had Puyo Puyo 2 and Pinball, and they replaced them. They replaced them. They're their own games they own the rights to, and they replaced them in the remastered version for literally no, like, they've never commented on it publicly. Now, the rumor is because completing the game 100% with both of those games took hours, and people were very, did not like how long it took to, because, like, Puyo Puyo is not an easy game. And so getting, like, a full, like, arcade run-through of Puyo Puyo 2 to get the platinum probably pissed off a lot of people. But, like, I would like to have that. So, like, this is what they replaced it with. I want to get your thoughts on this. So, instead of having Pinball, they gave us Outrun.
I mean, that's fine. I don't even know what pinball game are I missing out on.
I don't know. It's just some original new pinball game, which is extra sad because they made a new pinball game just for this. But, like, what's even more sad is there's dialogue in the story of Yagami is, like, talking to women. He's like, oh yeah, I'm a big pinball fan. I bought a broken pinball machine. I fixed it up, and it's in my office. I'm like, no, motherfucker, that's an Outrun cabinet. You're lying to me. It's not a pinball cabinet. And the other one that makes it worse is they replace Puyo Puyo 2 with a 3rd version of Virtual Fighter. So now the game has Virtual Fighter 5, Virtual Fighter 2, and they replaced it with Virtual Fighter 2.1.
2.1? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if they had to, like, bring another Virtual Fighter in, they'd have to make a new port for it.
God forbid.
So, yeah, because, I mean, if they wanted to put, like, 3 TB in there or something, they'd actually have to put a lot of effort into that, so...
I would at least say, like, be weird. Like, if you're going to give me a 3rd version of Virtua Fighter, at least give me, like, some garbage, like, give me Virtua Fighter 2 on the Genesis.
Yeah, that's been ported to a lot of stuff, so that would work.
So, yeah, like, when I found out that I lost out on Puyo Puyo and Pinball, that was a really heartbreaking day for me, because I love Puyo Puyo 2, and I love Pinball.
Man, that pinball thing is really heartbreaking to me. That sucks. I really like pinball too.
So once again, people, if you ever see a quirky RGG Studio interview and they ended on dumb questions talking about Keanu Reeves and Kazuma Kiryu, just remember you could be asking them important pinball and Puyo Puyo related questions. Just think about that next time.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, speaking of not seriously, somehow we have done this talk. You've become your own podcast now, Pat. We're at like the hour. We're over an hour and a half here, so I think we have to wrap up. Just for the fact that I have to go to work soon. When do you have to go to work? Actually, are you working at it or are you working tomorrow?
This is my first day off this week.
There you go. Live it up or sleep in. I don't know. I don't even know. Like when you have a day off, what is your wake up time for sleeping in? Are you like 2 in the afternoon? Now? Okay.
Oh, sleeping in?
Sleeping in, yeah. So when you've gone to sleep, when do you wake up for your day off?
So I mean, if I actually have a decent sleeping schedule, like right now, well, not right now, but when I contacted you, um, but if I'm not being a good boy, maybe like midnight.
Wow. I need like that like good morning. I just woke up and it's midnight feeling. I can't even fathom that. My body would like invert on itself probably.
Oh no, I love that. I think that's great.
See now, no matter how
but
much
I
my work schedule has changed, I still wake up at like 6 a.m. every day. I immediately go back to
really
sleep,
oh
but my body has just been so accustomed to waking up really early for so long that my body just does it even with or without an alarm. We're like, oh, 6 a.m.? Oh, I don't have anything to do. Okay, go back to sleep. It's very weird.
yeah, I was like that for a long time until I started working nights. Working nights just completely killed that. But I'm still like a morning person, which I know like every time I say that, I'm sure there's like a million people who just retch and recoil and go, "Oh, how?"
I don't know, man. I hate the idea of missing out on my mornings too much to ever not be a morning person, you know?
Yeah. So like going on, it's like, well, yesterday I just got me a new bike. I'm so excited to go for an early morning bike ride tomorrow. Love going out in the morning like that. So yeah, I don't know. To me, that's great.
Mm-hmm. All right, man.
I
Well, it's
hate to
good.
miss out on that.
No, man, I gotta be honest. I miss riding my bike, but I have no reason to get a bike where I live. Like, it makes no sense. Like, I might as well just walk everywhere. But I do miss that, like, that feeling of just biking around, like, down in the Southwest. I miss that more. But I also am like, I wouldn't want to bike where I live now in the Midwest.
Yeah, it's all flat, isn't it?
It's a lot of trees, really flat though.
Yeah, it's too boring.
All right. Well, hopefully this podcast has not been too boring for everyone, even though I think it might be like 3 hours long. But the patrons paid for it, and so by God, they're gonna get it. Pat, thank you so much for suffering through me talking to your intro for at least an hour. But hopefully it was not too bad. Where can people find you when you're not VTubing and snoozing?
Yeah, on my Twitter, it's Persona Pat, and if you want to be weird, you can go find my Tumblr that I probably haven't used in like 2 or 3 years. That is also Persona Pat. Not that I'll see it because I haven't been on Tumblr in God knows how long. But you could do that.
You're very
if you wanted
select.
to.
You're very select with your social media.
I don't know why I need like a million of them. I mean,
I kept saying the same thing, and then all these damn kids were like, "Get a Discord, be on YouTube, make Twitter."
to be fair, like I am on YouTube. I don't have any videos.
Not yet.
So
Not yet.
yeah, you joked about the VTubing thing, but I'm thinking about it.
Do it. Let me tell you. Oh God. So you know the equivalent for like if there's too many guys, it's a sausage fest. What is it called if it's too many women?
Something that's way more awkward to say.
It's a cherry pit, guys. The VTubing
Oh,
market's
there we
just a
go.
giant cherry pit. So just as many more diverse genders we can put out there, the better. So I recommend all male VTubers rise up, stop being oppressed gamers, and start playing Herzog's V on the Sega Genesis, please.
Yeah, and who else is gonna be? What other VTuber is gonna be playing the entire Senran Kagura series?
Ooh, now do you mean the entire Senran Kagura series?
Oh hell yeah, I'm gonna play Bon Appetit.
Okay, alright, I'm glad you knew which one I meant. I will say this, I'm very excited that my first Senran Kagura and Hyperdimension Neptunia game in years will be the same game. I am so in for Hyperdimension and Senran Kagura, even though I know it probably won't be good. That is just.
I was gonna say
It's such a no duh idea that should have happened like 5 years ago, but I gotta buy it anyway. Like I like Tamsoft. I know they don't make great games, but like I'm into the idea at least.
yeah, I don't know. For like, I'm cautiously optimistic for that one. Maybe even saying cautiously optimistic is too generous, because like the first game without Takagi at the helm is kind of terrifying.
What's your like 60-second review of Katakawa Girls?
Oh, Kanagawa Jet Girls?
Yes.
Fantastic anime.
Not a good sign. Not a good sign for the game review.
Yeah, no. Seriously, check out that anime. Like, it's everything that the game isn't. Like, the game just feels like an unfinished mess. It feels like, oh shit, our director left the company. What do we do? Release it as is. No, we can't do that. Let's just take out all the content that would have been objectionable, but not patch it at all. Okay, here we go. Here it is. It feels like there's just so much missing, and it's super easy, it's super short, and I feel like it's easy because mechanics are bad.
I just legit can't believe Xseed localized it and brought it out here. Like, I knew it was a disaster, but the fact that someone actually was like, yo, this needs to come out in the West.
I mean, I'm glad it did, just so that I didn't have to pay the crazy import prices I would have paid for it.
Well, if you think that's a sad way to end the show, we're going to end this show with a moment of silence. Or, depending on what your reaction will be. If you think that game got a bad show, we'll use our goodbye as a moment of silence for the localized console version of Uppers.
But the PC port's good.
Yeah, but guess what? Where's my Vita version? Where's that PS4 version? Thanks, Sony. Thanks for killing it.
No joke, though. That is a fantastic game.
I could not. You know what's funny? It finally getting canceled on consoles made me finally import it. It is a great game. It's a really, really great game with an amazing soundtrack. Legitimately amazing soundtrack.
And dude, I didn't know it had Shinkiro art.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he did a fantastic job on that game.
Now obviously Uppers, a huge commercial failure in Japan and in the West, I'm sure. I would love to ever see that series come back. It never will, but I would love for it to ever come back.
Yeah, it's never coming back though.
Never coming back. What a downer of a nowhere ending on. Well, goodbye everyone. Thank you for listening to this. So we're gonna go play Uppers and cry probably now.
I think I'll do that.